Chapter 1478, Meeting Shen 3, Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded. She was not in a hurry to answer Grape's question. Miss, why are we eating here? Seeing that she did not get the answer she wanted, Grape asked again, unwilling to give up. Hee. If we don't eat something first, the waiter will stop us if we go up to look for him. After all, this is the best inn in Plentiful City, so how can we let our guests be disturbed? Moreover, that alchemist was here to treat Liao Yang, but he didn't stay in the city lord's mansion. Doesn't this show that there's a problem? Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. Although Zui Yi didn't explain to her why the alchemist would stay in the Full Moon restaurant, it wasn't hard to guess the reason why the alchemist from the Alchemist Guild would stay in the Full Moon restaurant. It must be because the alchemist couldn't cure Liao Yang's injury, so he had a conflict with the Liao family. Otherwise, the Liao family would treat the alchemist as an important guest. Just as Leng Ruoxue finished speaking, the dishes that she had ordered earlier were served. You guys are pretty fast. Leng Ruoxue praised. Hee, this is a must. How can I let the guest wait for long? The waiter said embarrassedly under Leng Ruoxue's praise. Please enjoy your meal. After the waiter finished speaking, he bowed slightly and turned to leave. Leng Ruoxue and the other two casually ordered some food, then stood up and left the restaurant, heading straight up to the third floor. This Full Moon restaurant had a total of 3 floors. The first floor was the main hall, the second floor had a large dining hall in addition to the guest rooms, and the third floor included ordinary guest rooms and VIP rooms. However, there were only 3 VIP rooms, and all of them were sky-high prices. They were definitely not something that ordinary people could afford. Leng Ruoxue and the other two found the first VIP room. Grape came forward and knocked on the door. A deep male voice was heard from the room. The door isn't locked, come in directly. Shen, who was in the room, said. Upon hearing the words of the room's owner, Leng Ruoxue and the other two immediately pushed the door open and walked in. Who are you? Shen, who was sitting in the living room, looked at Leng Ruoxue and the other two who were not too far away and asked curiously. These 3 people were obviously not the waiters who had come to deliver the dishes to him. Previously, he had ordered a few dishes and had the waiters bring them to his room. However, he had not expected that the people who had entered would be strangers. If he had known that this would happen, he would not have let them in so easily. When he thought of this, he could not help but feel a little regretful. Ai. How did he treat this place as Mayan City? I'm Lin Ruhan. I heard that an alchemist from the Alchemist Guild's main branch lives in the Full Moon Pavilion, so I've come to seek an audience. Leng Ruoxue replied very courteously. As for using her brother's name, she had done so with a clear conscience. You guys want to refine pills? Shen asked, a little puzzled. There was also an alchemist branch in Plentiful City. Other than the extremely difficult medicinal pills, they basically had all the commonly used ones. Why did this young lady who was disguised as a young master need to go through so much trouble to come and find him? Moreover, how did she know that she was here? Could it be that this young lady is from the city lord's mansion? Actually, the reason why he could see through Leng Ruoxue's female identity was because of his special cultivation technique. Hence, even if Leng Ruoxue's disguise was very good, she would not be able to hide it from him. However, he had no intention of exposing Leng Ruoxue, and naturally, Leng Ruoxue would not know that her gender had already been exposed. We're not here to ask for medicinal pills. Leng Ruoxue said with a faint smile. Her beautiful eyes were secretly sizing up the man in front of her. This man looked to be around 40 years old. He had an extraordinary bearing and had the aura of a superior. His appearance was also very handsome. If this was in her previous life, he would definitely be considered a diamond-ranked man. Besides, didn't people say that a man was a flower in his 40s? Then this man was definitely a flower in full bloom. In addition to his identity as an alchemist, he would definitely attract many bees, butterflies, and so on. Then why did you come to find me? Shen did not want to beat around the bush and test each other, so she said directly. I would like to ask Your Excellency to help me deliver a letter. Leng Ruoxue looked at the middle-aged man and revealed her motive. Are you treating me as a messenger? Shen Nua asked, feeling a little amused. This little girl was really bold. She did not even know who he was, and yet she dared to ask him to be her messenger. It can be considered so. I have no choice. Leng Ruoxue pretended to be pitiful as she spoke. Actually, the reason why she wanted this person to help her deliver the message was because she wanted to use various methods to tell those people she knew that she had come to the God world. How can you not have a way? Shen Nua asked curiously. I don't know where the Alchemist Guild headquarters is. Although Grape and Lotus Seed knew that the Alchemist Guild headquarters was in Mayan City, they had never been there before. She also didn't expect to meet someone from the Alchemist Guild headquarters in Plentiful City. In addition, she had made an appointment with Big Brother Ning to go to the Ning residence, so she naturally couldn't go to Mayan City with this alchemist. Moreover, he might not be willing to bring them along. In fact, before Liao Yang's incident, she had wholeheartedly wanted to go to the Ning family to find her godfather. However, with Liao Yang's example, she felt that it was better for more people to know that she was now in the divine realm. In this way, her safety factor would also increase greatly. After all, she did not want the same thing to happen again. The person you want to bring the letter to is in the Alchemist Guild headquarters? After hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Shen Nuo raised her eyebrows and asked. Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded. What is it called? Shen Nuo asked again. Although he might not know all the alchemists in the Alchemist Guild headquarters, he still had to ask what he needed to ask. Luyue. Leng Ruoxue spat out the two words softly. Which Luyue? Shen Nuo was stunned, and she muttered in her heart. The person this little girl was talking about, was it the one she knew? Are there many people called Luyue in the Alchemist Guild? Leng Ruoxue asked, feeling a little puzzled. There's only one, Shen Nuo said with a smile. He's the one I'm looking for. Leng Ruoxue nodded. You really know him? Do you know his identity? Shen Nuo still didn't quite believe Leng Ruoxue's words, so she asked again. Yes, I know his identity. Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's affirmative answer, Shen Nuo started to size her up seriously. This little girl was truly a rare beauty. At least, he had not seen anyone more beautiful than her in the many years he had been in the immortal realm. And when she was dressed in men's clothes, she had a different style. Could this girl be Luyue's little lover? He couldn't help but let his thoughts run wild. However, he had known Luyue for many years, but he had never heard of Luyue having a woman. Since you know his identity, why don't you let me take you to the Alchemist Guild headquarters to meet him? After sizing her up for a long time, Shen Nuo asked curiously. I've made an appointment with someone to go to another place. Otherwise, I'll go to the Alchemist Guild headquarters with you. However, are you really willing to take me there? Leng Ruoxue explained, but at the same time, she raised her own doubts. Ha ha ha. I definitely can't take you there now, because I have to go somewhere else. Shen Nuo said with a smile. I knew it. Leng Ruoxue lamented in her heart before she continued, then can you help me bring a letter? It's no problem to bring you a message, but I won't be returning to the Alchemist Guild headquarters for the time being. Shen Nuo said on account of Luyue. He did not lose anything by bringing a letter. Moreover, it was for Luyue. However, he could not return to the Alchemist Guild headquarters for the time being, so he had to make things clear with this little girl. It doesn't matter, as long as the letter is delivered. Leng Ruoxue said nonchalantly. She was also going to the Ning family to look for her godfather. The main reason she asked him to bring a letter to Luyue was to prevent herself from running into some ignorant people. I can guarantee that I'll bring the letter to you. Shen Nuo said with a smile. He had a pretty good impression of this little girl. Moreover, bringing a letter was as easy as lifting a finger. Right at this moment, a knock sounded on the door again. This time, Shen Nua did not directly let the other party in, but asked for the other party's identity. Who is it? Shen Nua asked. Sir Shen Nua, Im Liao Hui. The voice outside the door was extremely humble. City Lord Liao. What's the matter? Shen Nua's tone was extremely cold. He had never thought of hiding the fact that he was staying here from the city lord's manor. After all, they were the local tyrant here. However, he did not expect that Liao Hu's efficiency would be so low. He was not even comparable to a little girl. One must know that this little girl came to see him first. Leng Ruoxue did not expect the person who knocked on the door to be the city lord of Plentiful City. In addition to Shen Nua's cold tone, she was even more certain that there was some unhappiness between the two of them. Sir Shen Nua, I've specially come to apologize to you. Liao Hui said helplessly from the other side of the door. Although it was quite embarrassing to be blocked outside the door, the other party's identity and status were above his. Therefore, even if he lost all his face, he had to accept it. Who asked him to not offend the Alchemist Guild headquarters? City Lord Liao, you're being too serious. I, Shen Nua, am not a petty person. You don't have to apologize to me. Furthermore, I really can't do anything about your young master's injuries. Shen Nua told him the truth. Then, I wonder if Sir Shen Nua can provide me with some clues. Who in the immortal realm can treat young heir's injuries? Liao Hui begged in a low voice. City Lord Liao. I've said it before, your son's injuries can't be treated. Shen Nua reminded. If we can find the president of the Alchemist Guild headquarters, will young heir's injuries have a chance? Liao Hui didn't give up and asked. Although this son wasn't successful, he was his only son. Therefore, he couldn't just leave him. You can try, but no one knows where the president is now. Shen Nua did not break Liao Hu's hope and told him the truth. Thank you, Sir Shen Nua, for your guidance. If there's a chance, I'll personally pay a visit to the Alchemist Guild headquarters to apologize. Goodbye. After Liao Hui finished speaking, he also got the answer he wanted and turned to leave. Since Shen Nua was unable to treat young heir's injuries and said that he did not need to be punished, then there was naturally no need for him to shamelessly stay here and invite humiliation for himself. However, if there was a chance, he would still personally go to the Alchemist Guild headquarters. After Liao Hui left, Leng Ruoxue casually chatted with Shen Nua for a while and passed the letter that she had prepared to Shen Nua. Then, she left the Full Moon restaurant with Grape and Lotus Seed. However, on the way back to the courtyard, Grape and Lotus Seed looked at Leng Ruoxue as if they wanted to say something but hesitated. However, neither of them spoke. When they arrived at the courtyard, Leng Ruoxue returned to her temporary residence. She smiled as she looked at the grapes and Lotus Seed. Do you guys have something to say? Miss. The one called Shen Nua just now, he seems to be the Alchemist Guild's Vice Guild Master. Grape whispered. Chapter 1479, A Rainy Night, 1, Oh. Leng Ruoxue replied indifferently. However, she did not have much of a reaction. This was something that Grape and Lotus Seed could not believe. Miss. He's the vice president of the Alchemist Guild headquarters. Grape reminded. Although she had never seen Shen Nua before, Shen Nua's name was definitely not unfamiliar to anyone in the firmament. Moreover, the Lu Yu that the young miss had mentioned was also one of the vice guild leaders of the Alchemist Guild headquarters. She really did not expect that the person the young miss wanted to bring the message to would actually be Lu Yu. Hee hee. So what if he was the president of the Alchemist Guild headquarters? Grapes. Calm down. Leng Ruoxue laughed. Miss. The three vice guild leaders of the Alchemist Guild headquarters are of high status and authority. Their status in the divine realm is transcendent. Furthermore, they are the idols of all alchemists. Not only that, even those of us who are not alchemists greatly admire them. Grape said with a face full of yearning. Oh. Leng Ruoxue's reaction was still very calm. However, seeing her reaction, Grape actually felt a little depressed. Wasn't the young miss acting a little too calm? Grape. I'm hungry. Leng Ruoxue looked at the depressed Grape and chuckled. I'll go get some food for Miss. Grape said resentfully. After he finished, he turned and left. After a short while, a few dishes that looked, smelled, and tasted good were served to Leng Ruoxue. After finishing her meal, Leng Ruoxue received an uninvited guest. This person was none other than the person who had led the way to make things difficult for her when she had just arrived at the city lord's residence. Leng Ruoxue did not speak first as she looked at the woman who appeared slightly ill at ease. The woman sat on the chair uneasily for a long time before she finally spoke. I know you don't want to see me, but I have something to ask of you. The woman's face turned red after she finished speaking. If you have anything to say, just say it. I don't like to beat around the bush. Leng Ruoxue said directly. Young master, you should know about young master's injury, right? The woman said carefully. As she spoke, she used her eyes to secretly observe Leng Ruoxue's reaction. Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded and waited for him to continue. You've only been here for a short time, so you don't understand the city lord and the young master's character. The city lord won't let us off for the young master's injury. The woman said with some fear. What does this have to do with us? We're not the ones who injured Liao Yang. Leng Ruoxue pretended to be confused and asked. Even if it had nothing to do with us, the city lord would still place the blame on us, especially since the Phyllis sisters are dead. Furthermore, according to what I know, the city lord had once sent people to the Phyllis sisters' family to seek revenge for the young lord. Unfortunately, their family had long since declined and no one knew where they went. Thus, we naturally became the target of the city lord's anger and took the blame for the sisters. After the woman finished speaking, a trace of sadness appeared on her face. How do you know all this? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. It seemed like this lady was not simple. She had never heard Zue Yi mention these things before. I have a clan brother working as a guard in the city lord's mansion. He's also one of the guards who's going on a mission this time. He told me this in secret. The woman said honestly. Oh. And then? Leng Ruoxue continued to play dumb. Actually, she didn't completely believe this woman's words, so she naturally wouldn't take the initiative to reply. I want you to cooperate with me. Let's escape this place together. Under Leng Ruoxue's half-smiling gaze, the woman finally mustered up the courage to reveal her plan. You actually want to escape? Didn't you always want to be the young madam? Leng Ruoxue asked in surprise. This woman had been with Liao Yang for so long, when did she change her personality? You still have to be alive to be one. They're coming to kill us, I don't want to stay here and let them slaughter me. The woman said angrily. That's just one aspect. Do you also know that Liao Yang is impotent and that there's no future with him? That's why you want to leave. Leng Ruoxue said. You're right. I know that. However, in my heart, wealth and glory are important, but my life is more important. The woman did not deny Leng Ruoxue's words. That makes sense. No matter how much money you have, it's useless even if you don't live to enjoy it. Leng Ruoxue agreed. Even though she didn't like this woman, she was a practical and smart woman. Then, are you willing to cooperate with me? The woman asked with uncertainty, her beautiful face still full of anticipation. Tell me your plans first. What are your arrangements? Leng Ruoxue avoided the question and did not answer it directly. I've already asked my clan brother to keep an eye on the situation in the city lord's mansion. Once there's any news, inform me immediately. However, I'll have to rely on you to guard the courtyard. The woman said. Rely on me? You want me to deal with those guards? You're thinking too highly of me. I'm only a mid-level deity. Leng Ruoxue laughed at herself. However, she was mumbling in her heart. Could it be that this woman knew that those guards were from the left wing? If that was the case, then this woman's background was very suspicious. Because in the past few days, she had almost never left the house and had never had any contact with the guards. Strength is not important. I know you're very smart, otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to make us so obedient. So, I believe you have a way to deal with those guards. The lady said confidently. Looking at her, Leng Ruoxue had no idea where her confidence came from. Could it be that she had been beaten silly by the grapes and lotus seed? But I really have no choice. Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. How is that possible? Don't tell me you want to stay here and wait for death. The woman's face was filled with disbelief and disappointment. She never thought that Leng Ruoxue would be so cowardly. However, she could not die with them. However, without anyone's cooperation, she couldn't leave the courtyard alone. Of course I don't want to wait for death, but I really can't deal with those guards. Why don't you find someone else to try? Leng Ruoxue suggested. If someone else could do this well, I wouldn't have come to you first. The woman was extremely disappointed. Even though she was a little embarrassed when she came, she believed that as long as she told Leng Ruoxue her thoughts, she would definitely agree. Who knew that she would actually say that there was no other way? What should she do? She didn't want to stay here and wait for death. But now, she had a favor to ask of him, so she had to bear with her dissatisfaction. Chapter 1480, A Rainy Night, 2, Miss Leng, you should have more confidence in yourself. I believe that you will definitely be able to think of a good way. The woman persuaded, unwilling to give up. You really think too highly of me. If I really had a way, why would I be trapped here for so long? In fact, I think you can gather all the women you're close to and come up with a good plan. One person is short, 3 people are long. There are so many of you, you can always come up with a solution. Leng Ruoxue advised. In reality, it wasn't difficult for her to leave. It was just that she didn't trust this woman, so she naturally wouldn't blindly join her. Those women only know how to be jealous and scheme against each other all day long. How could they have any good ideas? The woman said with a look of disdain. You can't say that. Besides, that was in the past. Now that we're at the juncture of life and death, as long as they don't want to die, they'll naturally try their best to think of a way. Don't underestimate the potential of human survival. Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. But I'm afraid that someone will be afraid of death and betray us. The woman voiced out her worry. In reality, this was what she was most worried about. She understood those women too well. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone to look for Leng Ruoxue. You've been in the city lord's mansion for a long time, so you should know who would do such a thing, right? At the same time, you should know very well in your heart who will follow your lead and obey your orders. Do you still need me to teach you how to do it? Leng Ruoxue said calmly. All right. Then I'll try. However, I still hope to be able to work with you. The woman refused to give up. She didn't know why, but she had high hopes for Leng Ruoxue. If you can come up with a good plan, I can cooperate with you. Leng Ruoxue promised. The meaning behind her words was, don't let me make the decision. Good. When we're done discussing, I'll come and find you. After the woman finished speaking, she stood up and left. After the woman left, Grape said with a look of disdain, she really knows how to use others as her gun and leave when she wants to. You even want us to cooperate, humph. Who does she think she is? Hee hee. If she doesn't need our help, it's fine to cooperate with her. Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. Miss. Don't be so kind, who knows what she's up to. She doesn't trust those women, but we don't trust her. Grape reminded him cautiously. I know, my little housekeeper. I didn't agree to her request, did I? Leng Ruoxue could not help but laugh. Did she look like such a kind person? 2 days after this interlude, Leng Ruoxue finally received some good news. Xiao Budian had completed his cultivation. With that, she could leave whenever she wanted to. The woman who wanted to cooperate with her had also received no news. Not only that, there was no important news from Zue either. For a moment, everything seemed to be calm again. At this moment, in the city lord's mansion, Liao Hui was sitting in his study room with a sad face. His son's injuries had no hope of being treated, and according to his subordinate's report, Shen had already left Plentiful City. As for Philip's family, they were nowhere to be found. Therefore, his current mood could be said to be extremely vexed. City Lord. The young master is throwing a tantrum again. Suddenly, the guard's voice rang out from outside the door. Hearing the guard's words, Liao Hui was even more annoyed. What does he want? Go and tell him. I won't stop him if he wants to die. Liao Hui shouted angrily. He was extremely disappointed with this useless son of his. If he didn't sneak out of the courtyard to meet the two bitches in private, this wouldn't happen. Although the news of Liao Yang's impotence had not been spread out yet, paper cannot cover fire. It was hard to guarantee that this matter would not be leaked. Therefore, he had been thinking about how to deal with those who knew about it. However, there were many people who knew about this matter, and he could not kill everyone. Alas! He was in a dilemma. Moreover, if that family found out about this, Liao Yang's marriage might not be able to happen. Men! Get Zue Yi to come see me. Liao Hui frowned and ordered the guards outside the door. Yes. The guard responded, and not long after, the left wing was invited. Zue Yi pushed the door open and saw Liao Hui walking around in the study room like a trapped beast. City Lord. I wonder why you've called me here. Zue Yi asked. In fact, he had been waiting for Liao Hui's summon these 2 days. However, he knew that Liao Hui was in a bad mood, so he naturally wouldn't take the initiative to come to his door and meet him. Zue Yi, I need you to help me think of a way. Yang, can't be humane, you can't leak this. Liao Hui said seriously. City Lord, are you afraid that family will find out? Zue Yi asked. Yes, I've spent a lot of effort to facilitate this marriage, so there can't be any mistakes. Liao Hui said very seriously. City Lord. There's something I don't know if I should say. Zue Yi said hesitantly. If you have something to say, just say it. You also know that in the entire City Lord's mansion, the person I trust the most and rely on the most is you. Liao Hui quickly said. City Lord. The young master's wedding is getting closer and closer, do you think this matter can be kept a secret? Zue Yi asked. Even if you can't hide it, you have to. This marriage is very important to Yang, Liao Hui said helplessly. However, if that family finds out about young master's condition, I'm afraid they will. Zue Yi only finished half of his sentence, but he believed that Liao Hui would understand what he meant. As long as they get married, it's useless even if they know. Can they still break the marriage? Unless they don't care about their reputation anymore. Liao Hui said disapprovingly. Since he had decided to hide it, he was naturally confident in his heart. Therefore, the key problem now was that this matter could not be leaked out. In other words, that family could not know. What the city lord said makes sense. Zue Yi flattered on purpose, but he despised Liao Hui's way of doing things in his heart. However, that family wasn't a good one, so he naturally didn't feel sorry for that lady. Left wing. What do you think we should do to prevent this matter from being leaked? Liao Hui asked. This was what he was most worried about. City Lord, you want to kill everyone who knows about this. Zue Yi understood. It seemed that Liao Hui didn't find Philip's clansmen and wanted to take his anger out on them. Silencing them was just an excuse. After all, as the city lord, he had to have a reason to kill people. Chapter 1481, A Rainy Night, 3. I do have that idea, but I don't want to kill the guards in the residence. Liao Hui thought for a while and said. Those guards were very loyal to him and he was very sure that they would not betray the city lord's mansion. The city lord is referring to the woman in the courtyard. Zue Yi asked, pretending to be uncertain. Yang was destroyed by a woman, so I don't intend to let those women live. Although he had hesitated before, he needed a few punching bags now. Otherwise, the anger in his heart would not be appeased. The young master. Zui hesitated. Does he care about the lives of those women now? If it wasn't for a woman, he wouldn't be like this. Liao Hui said angrily. Since the city lord has already made his decision, the left wing will support you fully. However, the fewer people who know about the matter of getting rid of those women, the better. Zui reminded. Yes, I plan to hand this matter over to Liao Cheng. Liao Hui said. Liao Cheng was his distant nephew, so he was the best person to do this. City Lord. It's not appropriate to let Liao Cheng handle this matter. Zui said. Why? He's from the Liao family, isn't that just right? Liao Hui asked in confusion. City Lord, don't blame me for being overly sensitive. You know about the young master's current situation. Although the city lord only has one son, he has many nephews. Among these people, it's hard to guarantee that there won't be any disloyal thoughts. Therefore, the city lord must be on guard. Zui said very cautiously. In fact, his words were rather implicit. Moreover, Liao Hui was an old fox and would definitely understand what he meant. As expected, Liao Hui fell into deep thought without a word after Zui finished speaking. After a long while, Liao Hui slowly said, It's all thanks to your reminder. Who do you think should do this? Actually, it's just getting rid of a few women. The city lord can just send some of his confidants to do it. There's no need to get the Liao family. After all, it's a critical time now, and it's hard to guarantee that some of the Liao family won't have other ideas. Zui said after some thought. Yes, I know what to do. Liao Hui nodded. Then this subordinate will take his leave. Zui said when he saw that there was nothing else. Yes. Liao Hui nodded and immediately called his confidant over to give some instructions. After Zui returned to his room, he found his trusted subordinate and ordered him to inform Len Ruoxue of this news so that she could be mentally prepared. When Len Ruoxue heard this news, she wasn't surprised and had no intention of retreating without a fight. However, when the woman came looking for her again with a face full of panic, Len Ruoxue knew that she had also heard the news. Miss Leng. The city lord is going to kill us, what do we do now? The woman said with a face full of fear. You've been discussing for 2 days. Haven't you come up with a good idea? Len Ruoxue asked calmly. When those women heard what I said, they were scared to death. How could they think of a way? Miss Leng, we must leave this place as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'm afraid we'll die here. The woman warned. I also want to leave, but there has to be a way. Len Ruoxue's face was filled with helplessness. Don't tell me we can only wait here for death. The woman said unwillingly. Do you want to die? Len Ruoxue asked with a smile. Of course I don't. The woman immediately said. Who would want to die if they could live well? Since you don't want to die, I can only rise up and resist. Len Ruoxue reminded. How do we resist? Our strength isn't high, how can we be compared to the well-trained guards of the city lord's mansion? The woman was in a dilemma. She wanted to run, but she didn't have the confidence to do so. Otherwise, she wouldn't have needed his help and would have run away by herself. We can't fight them head-on, but what if we use some extreme methods? Even if you show your enthusiasm, those guards may not be able to complete their task as they wish. Len Ruoxue said indifferently. Extreme methods? The woman was confused. What kind of method was considered extraordinary? That's up to you guys to think about. I don't know how to use crooked ways. Len Ruoxue said irresponsibly, and her words made Grape and Lotus Seed laugh in their hearts. Thank you for your reminder. I think I know what to do. The woman stood up and immediately went back to prepare. Miss. You're so bad. After the woman left, Grape could not help but smile. How am I bad? Didn't you always say that I'm too kind? Len Ruoxua laughed evilly. Ah. That's right. Miss is just too kind. Grape quickly echoed. Miss. Shouldn't we also make some preparations? Lotus Seed said, eager to try. Looking at Lotus Seed's face full of anticipation, Len Ruoxua couldn't help but sigh. Lotus Seed. You've been corrupted. Miss. I didn't learn anything bad. Lotus Seed looked at Len Ruoxua with a wronged expression. All right. You didn't go astray, it's just that your potential has been unearthed. Is this enough? Len Ruoxua was in a good mood as she teased, hee hee. After waiting for so many days, she could finally do something big. She was also quite looking forward to those women who only knew how to be jealous. She didn't know what kind of potential those women would be able to unleash in this life and death situation. Miss is the worst. Lotus Seed could hear Len Ruoxua's teasing and deliberately complained. Lotus Seed. You can't wrong me. Len Ruoxua pretended to be very aggrieved. Alright, let's stop messing around. Since they're prepared to make a move on us, let's make preparations. However, let's see how those women behave before we make a move. Following that, Len Ruoxua ordered. Hee hee. Miss. We've been preparing and waiting for them to come. Grape said excitedly. Be more vigilant these few days. Len Ruoxua said worriedly. Although she wanted to use underhanded means, there was still a huge difference in strength between the two parties. Hence, they still had to be more careful. Grape and Lotus Seed nodded, then went to prepare. That night, Zui came uninvited again. Len Ruoxua, who was already lying on the bed, looked at the man standing in the room. Her face was filled with black lines. This guy really did not have the habit of knocking on the door. He had actually barged into his room in the middle of the night. Chapter 1482, A Rainy Night, 4, It's so late, what are you doing here? Len Ruoxua was speechless. I'm here to show my concern for you and see if you're too scared to sleep. Zui said matter-of-factly with an annoying smile on his face. You see it now? Len Ruoxua was helpless. Well, I don't understand how you can be so calm. Zui was getting more and more curious about Len Ruoxua. If other women knew that they were about to be killed, they would have been scared out of their wits. However, she was still able to fall asleep. This was out of his expectations and made him feel even more incredulous. What else could I have done? Len Ruoxua asked instead of answering. You still don't want to leave now? Zui asked again. Someone is trying to kill us. If we just leave like this, how depressing would that be? I have to leave a gift for the other party before I leave. Len Ruoxua's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of coldness as she spoke coldly. I've said it before. If you want to leave, I can help you. However, if you insist on staying, I can't guarantee your absolute safety. Zui sighed softly. Although he had already guessed that Len Ruoxua would not back down at the last minute and ask him to send them off, he still felt a little depressed after hearing Len Ruoxua's affirmative answer. This woman was too stubborn. Thank you for your kindness, but I'll take good care of myself. If there's nothing else, don't come here all the time. After all, you're now a guest of the city lord's mansion. Since you've taken someone's money, you have to help them get rid of their disaster. It's a taboo for an employer to betray others. Be careful not to lose your job. Len Ruoxua chuckled. Since I dared to come, I naturally wouldn't let anyone find out. However, are you sure you can protect yourself? Zui could not help but ask. Yes. Len Ruoxua nodded. In that case, take care. After Zui finished speaking, his figure flashed and he disappeared. For the next few days, the city lord's mansion that wanted to kill them did not make any moves. However, Len Ruoxua and the rest did not let their guard down. After the woman received Len Ruoxua's warning, she made some preparations and even came to inform Len Ruoxua. It was another stormy night. Leng Ruoxue and the other two were not sleepy at all. They stood in front of the window and looked at the night sky that was as dark as ink and flashing with lightning. Their mood was surprisingly good. Miss. I wonder if the city lord's mansion will send someone over tonight. Grape's beautiful face was full of anticipation. Grape, after tonight, we can leave this place. Leng Ruoxue said as she caressed the little guy's soft fur. Sister. I can take you away now. The little guy quickly expressed his position. No rush. We have to leave a gift for the city lord of Plentiful City before we leave. Leng Ruoxue's beautiful face was filled with an evil smile. A gift? Why aren't you giving it to me? When the little guy heard that he had to leave a present for the bad guy, he immediately said in dissatisfaction. Because those gifts were specially prepared by my sister for the city lord of Plentiful City, Leng Ruoxue explained with a smile. Sister. I also want a present. The little guy pouted his little mouth and said in a spoiled manner. Hee hee. Once we leave this place, big sister will prepare whatever Xiao Budian wants. However, we have to deal with the people from the city lord's mansion first. A cold glint flashed across Leng Ruoxue's beautiful eyes. Just now, Qing Ju had sent her a voice transmission, saying that the people from the city lord's mansion had arrived. Just as Leng Ruoxue finished her sentence, the three of them heard footsteps coming from the courtyard. It seemed like there were quite a number of people. The three of them looked at each other and laughed, but none of them left the room. Then, bang was heard. A loud sound was heard and the door was kicked open roughly. Following that, dozens of men in black rushed in. Their faces were covered with veils, only revealing their eyes. However, when they saw Leng Ruoxue, their eyes were filled with shock. Who are you people? How dare you barge into my young lattice room? When Grape saw those men in black, her eyes flashed and she questioned them loudly. Moreover, she despised these men in black in her heart. If they came to kill, so be it. But they were actually dressed in black. TSK. Don't think that just because you're dressed in black and your faces are covered, you can't tell who sent you. We're here to send you on your way. Don't worry, we'll end the battle quickly. We won't let you feel any pain. A black-clothed man said. He really couldn't bear to kill such a beautiful woman. Unfortunately, they had no choice but to obey the city lord's orders. Chapter 1483, The Fire Dragon's Might, 1. Thank you so much, you guys are really good people. Grape rolled his eyes and thought, you guys will end the battle quickly and won't cause us any pain. Well, be the opposite. Well, definitely make you regret taking this mission. Hee hee. Captain. Don't talk nonsense with them, Master is still waiting for us to return and report. Another man in black reminded him in a low voice. Brothers, let's send these three beauties on their way as soon as possible. We've done a good thing. The leader of the black-clothed men said with a look of pity. However, his pretentious expression caused Grape and Lotus Seed to look down on him. As for Leng Ruoxue, she couldn't even be bothered to look at them. With the captain's approval, the dozens of men in black were naturally eager to make a move. However, as soon as this idea took shape in their minds, they felt their hands and feet go soft. They could not hold the swords in their hands steadily, and some of them even dropped their swords to the ground. The leader of the men in black saw this and couldn't help but curse, useless thing, you don't even want your weapon when you see a woman. So what if you haven't seen a woman in your hundreds of lives? Captain. It's none of our business. One of the men in black quibbled in a low voice. If it's not your business, then who's? You have to learn from me, even in front of a beauty, you can't lose your weapon. The leader of the men in black said confidently. However, just as he finished speaking, there was a clang and the weapon in his hand fell to the ground. Instantly, the room became silent. All the men in black lowered their heads in unison, and the leader's face was filled with embarrassment. Ha ha ha. You still have the face to talk about others. Looking at the embarrassing state of the leader of the men in black, Grape could not help but laugh wildly. Her words also made the leader's face burn, as if it was on fire. What are you guys waiting for? Hurry up and kill them. The leader of the men in black was a little angry from embarrassment. Fuck, this was really embarrassing. But fortunately, these 3 women were about to die, and those subordinates didn't dare to tell anyone about his embarrassing incident. Captain. We've lost all our strength. One of the men in black couldn't help but remind him. Fuck. There are so many of us here, and we can't even kill 3 women. The leader of the men in black was furious. If he wasn't afraid of exposing his identity, he would have beaten these guys up a long time ago. They were really disappointing. Captain, a weak voice was heard, and dozens of men in black fell to the ground one after another. Seeing this, the leader of the men in black widened his eyes in disbelief. He even rubbed his eyes. What was going on? It's not the time to sleep. In the blink of an eye, he had actually become a loner. AI. How pitiful. Someone's become a commander. Grape pursed his lips and laughed. In fact, they had already drugged the room, so it was normal for those men in black to feel weak. As for the leader of the men in black, because he was stronger than the other men in black, the effect of the drug was much slower. However, he could not run away. Damn it. What did you just say? When the leader of the men in black heard Grape's words, he became even more furious. I said you're the commander of the light pole. Don't you understand human language? Grape provoked him on purpose. Just you wait. I won't let you off. The leader of the men in black threatened. Then, he turned around and kicked the man in black beside him while shouting, Get up. Hurry up and get up. Hee hee. Big sister, this black fellow is so interesting. Those people are already dead, and he still wants them to get up. If they really get up, wouldn't that be like a corpse coming back to life? The little guy said with an evil smile. That guy's been too agitated, so his mind is a little muddled. We can't learn from him. Leng Ruoxue said in a serious tone. Their cooperation had further infuriated the leader of the men in black. What did you just say? I dare you to say that again. The leader of the men in black roared in anger. However, as soon as he finished shouting, he felt that something was wrong with his body. He immediately became vigilant. How did this happen? Could it be that they had fallen into someone else's trap? However, other than his own subordinates, even the master did not know that he would take action tonight. The leader of the men in black was bewildered. He was now certain that someone had betrayed them. As for who it was, he had no idea. The anger in his heart surged up, but he didn't dare to show it, in case the 3 women found out about his abnormality. You're not feeling well, right? Grape ignored the man in black's anger and asked with a faint smile. How did you know? Upon hearing Grape's question, the man in black's heart tightened. Oh no. Could it be that they had discovered him? Do you know why they went limp and fainted? Grape asked with a smile. What do you want to say? The leader of the men in black suddenly felt a surge of fear in his heart, and he stuttered a little. In fact, long before you came, we had already drugged this room. The drug was supposed to repel insects, but you caught it. You guys are really unlucky. Grape chuckled and spoke the truth. The unspoken meaning of her words was nothing more than, you are the insects we want to drive away. You're despicable. When the leader of the men in black heard Grape's words, he said in anger and hatred. If looks could kill, Leng Ruoxue and the other 2 would have died 1,000 times over. You dare to say we're despicable? This was the biggest joke in the world. So many of you came to kill 3 weak women, and you still say we're despicable. Alright. Since you think so highly of us, then we won't be polite. We're despicable. If you have the ability, kill us now. Grape said provocatively. You think I can't kill you? The leader of the black-robed men roared in anger. He raised the sword in his hand and was about to swing it at Leng Ruoxue and the other two. However, with a clang, his sword fell to the ground once again, and his arm drooped down. Ha ha ha. Is this what you meant by you can kill us? Seeing this, Grape was extremely happy. Chapter 1484, The Fire Dragon's Might, 2, Grape. Don't talk nonsense with him, let's just kill him. Lotus Seed said anxiously. Yes. Grape nodded and exchanged a look with Lotus Seed. Then, the two of them attacked the leader of the men in black together. Although the two of them were not as strong as the leader of the men in black, he was poisoned and could not display his true strength. Therefore, it was quite easy for the two of them to deal with him together. Whoosh! Buzz! Whoosh! The two of them continued to release divine power from their hands, which flew towards the leader of the black-robed men. Seeing this, the leader of the black-robed men wanted to dodge in a hurry. However, he felt that his body was not as agile as before. He hesitated for a moment, and his body was injured. Soon, his clothes were torn into strips of cloth, and everything that should and should not be exposed could be vaguely seen. Damn it! The leader of the men in black gritted his teeth. He was extremely ashamed and resentful, but his body was getting weaker and weaker, and he could not hold on any longer. Looking at the leader of the men in black who was on the verge of collapse, the grapes and the lotus seeds continued to exert their strength, releasing their divine power. Furthermore, the two of them deliberately kept on eating pills to replenish their divine power in front of the leader of the men in black. The leader was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Fuck. They were really bullying him. The leader of the men in black couldn't help but curse in his heart. The water and fire divine power flying towards him was too much for him to handle. Right now, he absolutely had no power. Take my fire god's cut. Fire! Grape shouted and a huge fireball flew towards the man in black. Both the captain and the unconscious man on the ground were her targets. My water tornado is still the best. Lotus Seed was not to be outdone either. A waterfall-like water belt also flew straight towards the men in black. Seeing how serious the two of them were, Leng Ruoxue was speechless. She thought to herself, so what if one of you is planning to start a fire while the other is going to put out the fire? Or did they want to be in perfect harmony? However, no matter which one it was, these men in black probably wouldn't be able to withstand it. Bang! Bang! After two loud bangs, the men in black were set ablaze, and the waterfall that followed immediately extinguished the fire on their bodies. Seeing this, Grape was naturally unwilling to give up. She released a few more fire god slashes in succession, hitting Black Clothes's body. Then, Lotus Seed did the same. Stinky Lotus. Are you going against me? Grape asked, a little annoyed. Of course not. I'm putting out a fire. The room is so small, what if we get involved? Even if you want to set a fire, you have to wait until we're out. Lotus Seed said very seriously. Ah. That makes sense. I was too excited. A good child who knows his mistakes and can change for the better. Hearing Lotus Seed's words, Grape immediately admitted his mistake. At this moment, the leader of the men in black, who was already covered in injuries and had experienced both fire and water, was so angry that he wanted to faint like the others. Was this considered being bullied by a dog? In Plentiful City, he could be considered as a person who could get whatever he wanted. When had he ever suffered such vexing anger? However, even if he wanted to faint, he couldn't. Furthermore, his body wasn't listening to him. He could only watch as Leng Ruoxue and the other two walked past him and swaggered out. He couldn't catch his breath and his eyes rolled back. Finally, he collapsed. Of course, he was definitely angry. He finally fainted as he wished. It really wasn't easy. Grape sighed. As he spoke, Leng Ruoxue and the other two had already walked out of the room. Standing in the courtyard, the three of them looked at each other. Grape then began to carry out her plan of setting the house on fire. This was not her home anyway, so even if it was all burned down, she would not feel any heartache. The Vulcan's blade in her hand was released continuously and soon, the room they were staying in was set on fire. Leng Ruoxua smiled as she looked at the soaring flames. We can leave this place now. N. Grape and Lotus Seed nodded, and the three of them walked out of the courtyard. As they walked, they did not see a single person. At this time, the guards in the courtyard had all disappeared. Suddenly, the sound of killing entered the ears of the three people. The three of them curiously followed the direction of the sound and just happened to see the woman who wanted to cooperate with them. She was leading a group of women to fight with the men in black. Miss, should we help? Grape asked in a low voice. In fact, she was very afraid that she would be bitten back after helping. One must know that the scariest thing in this world was an ungrateful wolf. Go and help them. Leng Ruoxua nodded. Seeing that these women were all covered in wounds, it was clear that they had a strong will to live. In fact, if these women had given up on themselves, she would not have meddled in their business. However, it was obvious that these women wanted to live. N. Grape and Lotus Seed were extremely excited. The young Miss Medicine was too effective, so when they were dealing with those men in black before, it didn't take much effort. But now, it was different. These men in black were much more difficult to deal with than the previous ones. At the thought of this, the two of them could not wait any longer and rushed into the battle. Their participation in the battle had helped to relieve the pressure on the women who were exhausted from the battle. Leng Ruoxua then threw them some pills that could replenish their divine power. The women swallowed them without thinking and instantly felt the divine power in their bodies being replenished. At that moment, the women's auras soared. Thank you. The woman said gratefully. Focus. Let's take care of these people. Leng Ruoxua reminded. All right. The ladies who had their spirits lifted were all rubbing their fists and wiping their palms as they looked for their opponents. Leng Ruoxua, on the other hand, was leisurely observing the battle. After all, her strength was the lowest among these ladies. Even if she were to slack off, no one would have any objections. Furthermore, she had just helped them. However, even though Leng Ruoxua wanted to watch the battle, someone did not allow her to do so. Perhaps they thought she was a pushover. At the same time, three men in black had her surrounded. What are you guys doing? Leng Ruoxua gently stroked Xiao Budian's soft fur as she asked indifferently. Of course I'm going to kill you. Can't you tell? One of the men in black shouted angrily. Oh. Kill if you want to. Why are you so fierce? I'm not scared. Leng Ruoxua complained on purpose. Chapter 1485, The Fire Dragon's Might, 3, Don't talk nonsense with her, kill her first. The other man in black said impatiently. There were so many of them, but they had not even killed a single woman. He couldn't help but feel depressed. I'm so scared. Leng Ruoxua said with a face full of fear. However, she could not help but laugh in her heart. Could strength really represent everything? Although the three men in black were all god-tier masters, they were overconfident if they wanted to kill her. She might not be as strong as the three of them, but who said that they had to fight with real weapons? It's too late to be afraid now. None of you will be able to live today. The black-clothed man who spoke first said. AI. Since that's the case, I can't just let myself be slaughtered like that. All of you, come at me together. Leng Ruoxua said with a faint smile. Her words caused the hearts of all the women in the battle to tremble. A sense of shame welled up in their hearts. Leng Ruoxua was only a mid-stage deity, and yet she didn't even put these men in black in her eyes. There was naturally no need for them to be afraid. When they thought of this, their confidence exploded. A powerful aura burst out from their bodies, and their movements became even more ferocious. In an instant, the men in black who were fighting with them, they were all suspicious, but no one dared to let their guard down. As for Len Ruoxue, she had never expected that a simple sentence of hers would have such a huge effect. However, she was not in the mood to think about such things. Her attention was completely focused on the three men in black in front of her. Hearing Len Ruoxue's words, the three men in black could not help but laugh, ha ha ha. A beauty. We won't show any mercy to a woman, so you're dead. I don't need you to be tender to me. Don't talk nonsense, just do it. Len Ruoxue urged, her beautiful face still showing an impatient expression. Humph. You're rushing to your death. After one of the men in black finished speaking, he could not wait any longer and attacked Len Ruoxue. Sister. I'll help you. Xiao Budian, who was in Len Ruoxue's arms, saw this and immediately went up to meet him. His little claws were moving left and right, drawing a beautiful cold light in the air. In the blink of an eye, the black-clothed man's body was covered with claw marks, and blood was seeping out from the claw marks. How pitiful. You can't even defeat a small beast that hasn't even reached adulthood. Len Ruoxue couldn't help but exclaim loudly. At this moment, the black-robed man who was entangled by Xiao Budian had no way to fight back other than to dodge. If his movements were too slow, he would be caught by Xiao Budian's sharp claws. Damn it. You shut up. The black-clothed man who was fighting with the little guy roared out in anger. If I can't win, I can't win. And you don't allow others to say it. You're really too stingy. Len Ruoxue was very dissatisfied. The consequences were equally serious, and the other two men in black had become her punching bags. However, before she made her move, she waved her fair and tender little hand in the air, and a powder that was almost invisible to the naked eye was sprinkled directly on the two men in black. In an instant, the two men in black felt an extremely itchy sensation on their bodies, as if thousands of insects were gnawing at them. The painful and itchy feeling made them feel extremely uncomfortable. The itchiness on their bodies caused the two of them to reach out their hands to scratch the itchy spots. Len Ruoxue took the opportunity to make her move. A huge fire dragon soared into the sky, its huge eyes staring fiercely at the two ugly men in black. Then, with lightning speed, it charged towards the two men aggressively. This fire dragon was condensed by Len Ruoxue using her divine power. The flames on the fire dragon were her natal flames. Even the tiniest bit of it would turn it into ashes. Len Ruoxue's motive for adding her natal flames into the fire dragon was naturally to kill it in one strike. After all, she did not have the upper hand in terms of strength. The fire dragon was extremely fast, and before the two black-clothed men could react, it had already wrapped them up tightly. They didn't even have the chance to cry out before they were directly reduced to a part of the air, disappearing from the world. Len Ruoxue was stunned when she saw this. The power of his flames was so great. I just don't know if it can burn a reverent god, hee hee. She couldn't help but let her imagination run wild. As for the black-clothed man who was currently entangled by the little guy, after seeing his companion disappear just like that from the corner of his eye, his heart trembled. His footsteps became somewhat disorderly, and even the gaze he used to look at the little guy revealed a trace of fear. That dragon was really too powerful. How could it let people live? Moreover, after the dragon had eliminated the two men in black, not only did it not disappear, but it was even staring at him like a tiger watching its prey. How could this not make him scared? At this moment, he really wanted to run away. However, the little guy would not give him the chance to do so. Taking advantage of the time when he was still in the middle of his spell, he grabbed a few more streaks from his body. When he felt a little tired, he jumped back into Len Ruoxue's arms and handed the black-robed man, who was covered in wounds, to the fire dragon that Len Ruoxue had conjured. You, what are you doing? Don't mess around. Looking at the proud fire dragon, the man in black was so scared that he was incoherent. The expression on his face was like a wronged wife. Woo! He was wrong. He shouldn't have thought that this woman was the weakest and wanted to deal with her. This woman was clearly a pig to eat the tiger. Her strength was the highest among these women. Damn it! She had actually hidden her strength and caused him to misunderstand. Fortunately, Leng Ruoxue did not know the thoughts of this black-robed man. Otherwise, she would definitely cry out in grievance because she was only a mid-level deity. It was just that her flames were a little abnormal. As if it understood the man in black's words, the fire dragon in the air stared at the man in black for a long time with a conflicted expression. Finally, it slowly flew towards the man in black. At this time, the man in black was so scared that his legs were weak, and he couldn't run even if he wanted to. In an instant, the fire dragon pounced at the man in black again. After eliminating the 3 men in black, the fire dragon, who was unwilling to be left out, began to attack the other men in black. However, at this time, the men in black were fighting with the women, so it was not easy for it to make a move. Therefore, it just wandered around in the air. Once it encountered a man in black who was alone, it would be its. Chapter 1486, The Fire Dragon's Might. 4. As the number of men in black inexplicably decreased, the women who were focused on fighting the men in black also felt that something was wrong. Moreover, the temperature around them seemed to have suddenly risen. At this time, someone realized that a fire dragon had appeared beside him. Seeing that it had attracted everyone's attention, the fire dragon let out a few long roars towards the sky in satisfaction. It then continued to shake its head and tail at Leng Ruoxue. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue could only helplessly say, "All of you, move aside. Leave those people to my fire dragon." As the master of her own life flame, she was very clear about the fire dragon's thoughts. She also knew that the fire dragon she had mimicked had consciousness. Who asked her flame to be different? When the women heard Leng Ruoxue's words, they were a little skeptical. However, they still tactfully made way for her. After they retreated to a safe place, the black-robed man with the bruises on his body was instantly exposed. When the fire dragon saw this, it was extremely excited. Sob. It seemed that the bad master had not let it out for a long time. Today, it had to do something big. As the saying goes, the natal flame would be nurtured by the owner. Although the consciousness of the flame was not complete, it had already taken shape and was connected to Leng Ruoxue's mind. Therefore, its actions could also be considered as Leng Ruoxue's subconscious thoughts. At the same time, the fire dragon suddenly expanded its body. It was now more than twice as big as before, and the flames on its body burned even more fiercely. In the next second, it covered all the dumbfounded men in black in its flames. In just a few seconds, the man in black disappeared without a trace, not even leaving a strand of hair behind. All the women, including Grape and Lotus Seed, widened their eyes in disbelief and were speechless for a long time. Half a moment. The crowd finally regained their senses. The lady walked to Leng Ruoxue's side and said with a fearful expression, "I didn't expect you to have such a powerful beastie." AI. It seemed that the other party had indeed shown mercy to them. Otherwise, they would not be a match for this beast. Because the fire dragon that Leng Ruoxue had conjured had a physical body and even its eyes were alive, they had mistaken it for a beastie. However, Leng Ruoxue had no intention of explaining it to them. She only smiled faintly and said, "It's my trump card. I won't use it easily, because once I use it, it will sleep for a long time. So that's how it is." "That's right. In order to avoid any more trouble, let's quickly leave this place," the woman suggested. This time, they had escaped from death, so all the women wanted to leave as soon as possible. Do you have any plans for the future?" Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. We haven't decided yet," the woman said, a little embarrassed. Before this, they had been thinking about how to escape. As for what would happen in the future, they really had not thought about it. Actually, what I want to say is that women don't necessarily have to rely on men to live. If you want, you can also make your own world. Leng Ruoxue half reminded and half encouraged him. "Can we?" all the women said in unison. Although some of them were obtained by Liao Yang through extraordinary means, over time, they had become accustomed to it. As for the other women, some of them were willing to follow Liao Yang, and some were sent here by their families. The one thing they had in common was that they had all accepted their fate. This was because unless the women in the divine realm were especially doted on by their families, they could only be reduced to the chess pieces of their families. This profound thought that had been ingrained in them for a long time had caused them to lose their sense of self. He didn't even think about his future. However, Leng Ruoxi's words had touched them greatly. They couldn't help but think about it seriously, but they didn't have much confidence. Why can't I? As long as you want to, you can do it. Of course, if you want to continue with your previous life, that's your choice. But what I want to say is that a woman who depends on a man's life will never be truly respected by others. Leng Ruoxue said calmly. Let's quickly leave this place. Leng Ruoxue spoke again as she looked at the confused expressions on the ladies' faces. She knew that even though her thoughts had shaken these ladies, it would still take time for them to accept it. Chapter 1487, Good Character, 1, N. The women nodded and walked towards the door together. However, they were all preoccupied with their own thoughts and did not notice that the fire dragon had disappeared. Not long after they walked out of the courtyard, a huge fire started burning. At this moment, Zue Yi, who was not far away from the courtyard, saw the fire dragon and sighed in his heart. He could offend anyone but a woman. Look at how ruthless these women are, just let them go. Before he left, he had to set fire to the courtyard. He really didn't cherish his property. However, when he saw that Leng Ruoxue and the other two were safe and sound, he turned around and left. After Leng Ruoxue and the rest left the courtyard, they separated from the other ladies. In her words, it was too dangerous for everyone to walk together and it would not be easy for them to leave the city, so it was better for them to split up. The other ladies heard her words and felt that it was very reasonable. However, they had received Leng Ruoxi's help before and she had touched them greatly. Hence, they were all a little reluctant to part with her. Seeing their expressions, Leng Ruoxue felt helpless. However, he still had to split up with them. After the crowd dispersed, Leng Ruoxue and the other two did not leave Plentiful City immediately. Miss, aren't we leaving? Grape looked at Leng Ruoxue, his face full of curiosity. Go. However, not now. Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. When will it be? Grape and Lotus Seed asked in confusion. We have to go to the city lord's mansion. Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. Ah. Miss. We've just escaped from there, are we going to be sheep in a tiger's den? Grape's face was full of question marks. She believed that the young lady would not want to go to the city lord's mansion for no reason. Moreover, she would not go there to see Liao Yang. So, what exactly did the young lady want to do? She was really curious. Then you want to leave just like this? Liao Yang caused us to suffer quite a bit of shock, so we should at least collect some interest. Leng Ruoxue replied matter-of-factly. What Miss said makes sense. When Grape and Lotus Seed heard Leng Ruoxi's words, they immediately nodded in agreement. Little guy. It's all up to you now. Take us to the Liao family's treasure vault. Leng Ruoxue chuckled as she instructed. Hearing Leng Ruoxi's instructions, Grape and Lianzi could not help but feel a few black lines sliding down their foreheads. They thought to themselves, young Miss is too ruthless. She actually wants to go to the Liao family's treasure room for a tour. However, with Xiao Budian's presence, there's really no place young Miss can't go. Yes, yes. The little guy happily nodded his head. This was something he loved to do the most. Following a flash of white light, when Leng Ruoxue and the others opened their eyes again, they had already entered a secret chamber. Wah! Is this the Liao family's treasure room? Grape looked around excitedly. This secret room was not very big, but there were many things inside. There were all kinds of rare treasures. Although she came from the Yin family of the 8 great divine regions, she still couldn't help but drool when she saw the good things in this secret room. The little guy proudly nodded his head. Little guy. You're really amazing, you actually found this place. Grape's face was full of admiration. At this moment, the little guy had simply become her idol. Hee hee. It's just average. The little guy was very modest. In fact, he wasn't the one who found this place. It was his sister who told him, so Grape's words made him a little embarrassed. Don't just stand there, we're going to take everything away from here, leaving nothing for them. Leng Ruoxue said calmly. Miss. I'll go over there. Grape pointed to the left side of the secret room. Miss. Then I'll go to the left. Lotus Seed said. All right. Leng Ruoxue nodded. The three of them split up and worked together, each collecting the items from a position. The three of them did not even look at the things they saw and kept them into their storage equipment. Not long after, the large secret chamber was empty. Leng Ruoxue and the rest looked at each other and smiled when they saw the three of them. Then, Leng Ruoxue ordered Xiao Budian to move them out of the city gate. At this moment, the city lord's mansion had also discovered that the courtyard was on fire. However, when Liao Hui and his men arrived, the entire courtyard had already been burned to ashes. Looking at the destroyed courtyard in front of him, Liao Hui's heart ached. One must know that he had spent a lot of money to build this courtyard. At this time, he had long forgotten about the woman living in the courtyard. All he thought about was his loss. However, at this moment, he didn't know that his treasure house had also been robbed. Otherwise, he would have vomited blood in anger. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue and the other two had already left Plentiful City with Xiao Budian's help. Looking at the city gates, Leng Ruoxue smiled at Grape and Lianzi and said, let's go. Grape and Lotus Seed nodded. However, Grape still had a big question. Did they just leave like that? Wasn't Liao Yang still alive and well? Miss. Why didn't you get rid of Liao Yang? I thought you would be so angry that you would kill him. Grape shamelessly asked. Grape, do you know what men care about the most besides power and status? Don't you think that his current state is better than being dead? Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. Ah. That's true. Grape nodded. It was indeed a very painful thing for a lecherous man to lose his ability in that area. So, it's more painful to let him live than to die. And Liao Hui, we robbed him of his many years of savings. Don't you think that's more depressing than killing them? Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. Actually, it wasn't that she didn't want to kill the father and son of the Liao family, but she was too weak now. On top of that, the father and son of the Liao family had the God Lord's estate as their backing. Therefore, she didn't want to get into a conflict with the God Lord's estate too soon. After all, one had to look at the owner before they beat a dog. Yes. Grape and Lotus Seed nodded at the same time. The three of them chatted as they walked, and soon, they were out of the sight of Plentiful City. Before they reached the meeting point with Ning Hai and the rest, Leng Ruoxue and the other two saw a tall figure walking towards them. Ruoxue. You guys are finally out. I'm so worried. If you guys didn't come out, I would have to return to Plentiful City to save you. Ning Hai said impatiently before they even got close. I'm sorry to have made Brother Ning worry. Leng Ruoxue's beautiful face was apologetic. It doesn't matter. It's good that you're safe. Ruoxue, let's quickly get on our way to avoid any more trouble. Ning Hai urged. He was afraid that the people from the city lord's mansion would chase after Leng Ruoxue and the other two when they realized that they had disappeared. Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded. At this moment, a huge gray eagle flew over and pounced at Leng Ruoxue. However, Leng Ruoxue managed to dodge it. Chapter 1488, Good Character, 2, Wu. It's only been a few days and you're already despising me. Hui Ao said with an aggrieved expression. There were even tears glistening in his eyes. I'm not despising you. You're so big, if you pounce on me, I'll be injured. Leng Ruoxue said speechlessly. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Even if you want to act coquettishly, you have to do it after the mimicry. Anyone would be scared if you pounced on them like this. Oh. When Hui Ao heard Leng Ruoxue's words, he quickly transformed into his mimicry appearance and pounced into Leng Ruoxue's arms. Hee hee. Shua. I miss you so much. Hui Ao said shyly as he rubbed his head against Leng Ruoxue's chest. Seeing his beloved pet like this, Ning Hai hid far away, with the words, I don't know it written on his face. Shua. Let's go. Ning Hai started to urge him again. Let's go. Leng Ruoxue smiled helplessly. After regrouping with the crowd, Leng Ruoxue and the rest were prepared to set off towards the Ning residence. However, when they saw the others, Leng Ruoxue accidentally discovered Hong Wuan among them. There was a tall and handsome man standing beside her, guarding Hong Wuan like a guardian angel. Ruoxue. It's a good thing you're fine. When Hong Wuan saw Leng Ruoxue, she was extremely excited. Hong Wuan. Didn't you guys leave? Why is he with Big Brother Ning and the others? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. I was worried about you, so I didn't leave Plentiful City too far. I happened to meet Brother Ning and accidentally found out about your relationship with them, so we stayed here to wait for you. Hong Ling explained with a smile. Thank you for saving me. Qing Yun, the man beside Hong Ling, also said. The one who saved you wasn't me, you're welcome. Leng Ruoxue said indifferently. I know, but if it wasn't for you, that person wouldn't have saved me. Qing Yun understood. The other party was willing to save him because of Leng Ruoxue. Hence, he owed Leng Ruoxue a favor, and he would definitely return this favor when he had the chance. Beastie was a person who knew how to repay kindness. Oh right. We're about to leave this place, where are you guys planning to go? Leng Ruoxue knew that Beastie was a stubborn person, so she could only change the topic. We have nowhere to go. Can we go with you? Hong Wuan said, a little embarrassed. Actually, this was something she had discussed with Brother Qing. The two of them wanted to stay by Leng Ruoxue's side to see if there was a chance to repay her kindness. Otherwise, they would feel uneasy. However, they did not have any good reason to stay by her side, so they could only find the worst excuse, which was that they did not know if she would take them in. Thinking of this, she looked at Leng Ruoxue with a pitiful gaze, then turned to Ning Hai and the others. The charm of a beautiful woman was indeed invincible. Before Leng Ruoxue and Ning Hai could speak, someone impatiently said, Captain, let them stay. They're pretty strong, and our team just so happens to be lacking people. After hearing his team members' words, Ning Hai was a little embarrassed. In fact, he knew very well that they didn't want to join their team at all. They just wanted to find an opportunity to repay Ruoxue. However, looking at Ruoxue's appearance, she didn't seem to want to be their benefactor. If he took in these two people and made Ruoxue unhappy, that wouldn't be the result he wanted. So, for a moment, he really didn't dare to make this decision. At the thought of this, Ning Hai's gaze turned towards Leng Ruoxue, using his eyes to ask for her opinion. Leng Ruoxue had no choice but to say, Big Brother Ning. Since they have no home to return to, you should take them in. And, you guys come with us. Ning Hai nodded and said to Hong Wuan and Qing Yun, but he couldn't help but think in his heart, it's not that she wants to follow me, okay? However, since this was Ruoxue's idea, he had to obey it. Who asked him to not help Ruoxue in Plentiful City, and he had always felt guilty. After the discussion, Hong Wuan and Leng Ruoxue set off with Leng Ruoxue and the others. On the way, when they passed the first city, Ning Hai was afraid that what happened in Plentiful City would happen again. He did not tell Hui Ao to stop at the city gate. Instead, he set up a tent outside the city and planned to leave the city immediately after entering the city the next morning. This was because, according to the regulations of the Divine Realm, when passing by other people's cities, they were not allowed to fly directly, otherwise, they would be severely punished. When Len Ruoxue saw Ning Hai's quivering, she could only helplessly put on her men's clothes again. This time, there wouldn't be any men who would have any ideas about her. Initially, Qing Ju wanted to use the universal bracelet to change Len Ruoxue's gender. That way, no one would suspect Len Ruoxue's gender. However, Len Ruoxue was not willing to do so. After changing her gender, she could not immediately return to her original gender. All she wanted to do was to return to the godly mainland as soon as possible. Hence, she was not willing to let Qing Ju change her gender. But in this way, she would have to work harder. However, in order to reduce the trouble, it was worth the hard work. After half a month's-long journey, they were also getting closer and closer to the Ning family's divine realm. Ruoxue. After passing through Firefly City and a forest, we will be in the Ning family's divine territory. Once we reach the Ning family's divine territory, we will be truly safe. Ning Hai pointed at the city in front of him and said with a relaxed expression. It should be known that for the past half a month, he had been on tenterhooks almost every day, afraid that something would go wrong. Fortunately, he had arrived at Firefly City safely. Although this was not a city that belonged to the Ning family, it was close to the Ning family's divine realm. Therefore, the relationship between the city lord of Firefly City and the Ning family had always been close. It could be said that they were dependent on the Ning family's divine realm to survive. Firefly City. The name of this city is quite special. Len Ruoxue looked at the 3 words above the city gate and chuckled. Ha ha ha. Ruoxue. You don't know, there is a reason why this place is called Firefly City. Every summer, countless fireflies will gather here, and the scene is really spectacular. Moreover, even if there is no lighting equipment, the Firefly City is still brightly lit at night. Therefore, some people also call this the Nightless City. However, it only has such a grand occasion in summer. Ning Hai explained with a smile. Xia Tian. Isn't that the case now? Len Ruoxue asked suspiciously. According to what Big Brother Ning said, wouldn't they be able to see thousands of fireflies tonight? Yes. That's why we came at the wrong time, but luckily, we're only staying for one night. Ning Hai said gloomily. Ah. Hearing Ning Hai's words and seeing his depressed expression, Len Ruoxue was in a dilemma. What did Big Brother Ning mean by this? Weren't you very happy when you talked about the Firefly Festival? Why did he become depressed again after such a short while? Could it be that men could change their faces like flipping through a book? AI. A man's heart was truly like a needle at the bottom of the sea. Chapter 1489, Good Character, 3. Ruoxue. The grand occasion was quite attractive, but it was not a good thing for the people who were staying here. Sigh. You'll know when you experience it for yourself tonight. Ning Hai sighed. After that, Ning Hai led the group into Firefly City. In Firefly City, there were not many people on the streets. Len Ruoxue and the others walked on the streets, but not only did they not see many people, other than the inns, almost all the shops had closed their doors. Seeing this, Len Ruoxue was very puzzled. Big Brother Ning. Is today a special day? Why are all the shops in the city closed? Len Ruoxue asked curiously. Ruoxue. You'll know tonight. Ning Hai smiled but didn't answer. It was obvious that he wanted to maintain a sense of mystery. Ning Hai led the group to a familiar inn. Before they entered the room, Ning Hai told Len Ruoxue that they could go to sleep. After hearing Ning Hai's words, Len Ruoxue's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. Although it was close to evening, there was still at least 2 to 4 hours before the sky turned dark. Besides, they hadn't even had dinner yet. Wasn't it a little too early for them to sleep the first thing they did after entering the room? Miss. It's not wrong for us to listen to Big Brother Ning. Grape also said with a mysterious look. Grape. You're keeping me in suspense too. Len Ruoxue said gloomily. She felt even more aggrieved in her heart. Sob. You guys are such bullies. Knowing that it was her first time in the divine realm, they had actually colluded to hide it from her. This was really too much. Miss. You'll know at night. Now go to sleep. Grape urged with a smile. Then sleep. However, the grapes. You're not allowed to call me young miss anymore, I'm young master now. Len Ruoxue reminded helplessly. It seemed like they were planning to keep her in suspense until late at night. Why was she so pitiful? I know, miss. I will remember to call you young master in front of others. Grape promised. Yes. Len Ruoxue nodded. After lying on the bed, Len Ruoxue became more and more depressed as she thought about it. Unknowingly, she slowly entered dreamland. Late at night, Len Ruoxue was awoken by the buzzing sound in her ears. She opened her eyes impatiently and realized that it was already morning. No, it wasn't daybreak. The sky outside was filled with countless fireflies. Through the window, he could see the fireflies. They were fist-sized, round, and looked very cute. A pair of transparent wings kept flapping, and the light source at the end of the wings was shining with a dazzling white light, illuminating the dark night sky as if it was daytime. However, these fireflies were a little too loud. It was so noisy that she couldn't fall asleep at all. At the same time, Len Ruoxue finally understood why Big Brother Ning and Grape wanted her to sleep. It was because of this. Miss. You're awake. At this moment, Grape walked into the inner room from the outside. Do the people here sleep during the day? Len Ruoxue said. No wonder so many shops were closed when they entered the city in the afternoon. I heard so. This is my first time here too, miss. The scene outside is really spectacular. Let's go outside and enjoy it. Grape said eagerly, her beautiful face full of anticipation. Let's go. Len Ruoxue washed up and walked out of the room with the grapes. At the door of the room, she met Ning Hai, who wanted to come downstairs to have dinner with her. The few of them went to the dining room. Sitting in the dining room, after ordering the dishes, Len Ruoxue's gaze turned to the window. Seeing this, Ning Hai smiled and asked, how is it? Isn't it spectacular? However, these bugs are a little noisy. Len Ruoxue said. Hee hee. Without the existence of these insects, Firefly City would have already become the possession of some powerful force. Ning Hai explained. Firefly City was owned by a small family. Although it was very close to the Ning family's divine territory, the Ning family did not plan to take it under their control, and these bugs were a big reason. Not only that, but many forces also lost interest in Firefly City because of the existence of these fireflies. Although these fireflies brought a spectacular scene, they also ate a lot. To keep these fireflies alive, they would lose a lot of money. And these fireflies could not bring too much benefit to the city. Except for attracting some outsiders to come and admire them every summer, there were not many benefits. However, these fireflies were like a guardian angel to the city lord and the people of Firefly City. Therefore, they very much welcomed these fireflies to come and live for free every year, and these fireflies also knew how to repay kindness. If anyone had any ideas about Firefly City, they would definitely be attacked by them. After many years of living together, Firefly City and those fireflies who treated this place as their home had long formed a wonderful symbiotic relationship, and they had always lived in peace. It seems that these fireflies are getting along well with the people in the city. Len Ruoxue said. Yup. The people of Firefly City regard them as their guardian deities. It is said that a long time ago, these fireflies once saved the lives of their entire city, so they treat these insects very well, especially when summer comes, the people in the city will consciously change their rest time for them. Moreover, these insects are also very intelligent, although their strength is not high. Ning Hai said with a smile. They've already formed a symbiotic relationship. This is quite good. At least, I don't have to worry about being bullied by others. Len Ruoxue chuckled. Ruoxue. Do you know how much it costs to feed these bugs? There are so many of them, it's not easy to keep them alive. Ning Hai was speechless. Since they've already formed a wonderful symbiotic relationship, it's easy to keep them alive. Len Ruoxue replied calmly. Ah. There are so many of them, how are we going to feed them? Ning Hai's face was full of question marks. If I were the city lord, I would let them find their own food. Len Ruoxue said calmly. Looking for food? If they knew how to find their own food, they wouldn't have come here to live in the first place. Ning Hai couldn't help but remind her. He felt that Len Ruoxue's idea was clearly whimsical. The intelligence of these fireflies was not very high. How to communicate with them was a big problem. If these fireflies were really so obedient, this place would probably have changed owners long ago. Big Brother Ning. These fireflies have been here for many years, right? Have you ever thought that they only appear in the summer, so where do they go in the winter? Len Ruoxue asked with a smile. They should be hibernating in winter. Ning Hai thought for a while and said. Even if you want to hibernate, there should be a place. Besides, we're not from here, so how can we be so sure that the city lord here has no way of communicating with these fireflies? Len Ruoxue continued. Chapter 1490, Good Character, 4, Alright. You've convinced me. Ning Hai was helpless. What Len Ruoxue said did make sense. He was not from Firefly City after all. Ha ha ha. Big Brother Ning. Let's eat. Let's go for a walk on the streets later. Len Ruoxue couldn't help but laugh when she saw Ning Hai's resigned expression. Ning Hai nodded. After the meal, Ning Hai brought Len Ruoxue and the other two to the streets. At this moment, the pedestrians on the streets were like a sea of people, and the streets were bustling with life. Furthermore, every shop was open for business. Len Ruoxue was amazed by their unique business model. It seemed like no matter where one was, one would be able to find a way to survive. On the street, it felt more real than observing the fireflies through the window in the room. Furthermore, some of the fireflies did not seem to be afraid of strangers. Two of them actually flew down from the sky and landed on Len Ruoxue's shoulders. Len Ruoxue lifted her beautiful eyes and looked at the two little things on her shoulders who were slightly shy. Her forehead was filled with black lines. She couldn't help but grumble, "You two are just two little bugs, what are you so shy about?" Oh! Could it be that these two little fellows were female? She let her thoughts run wild. These two little guys were very beautiful. Their bodies were golden and translucent, looking like two exquisite crafts. They were very likable. Young master. Not only do you attract beasts, but you also attract insects. Grape sighed. However, the moment her words left her mouth, it attracted the angry glare of the two little worms on Len Ruoxue's shoulders. Seeing this, she could not help but laugh. Ha ha ha. They're still staring at me. Grape laughed wildly. Grape. We're on the streets, so be careful of your image. Len Ruoxue couldn't help but remind her maidservant when she saw her maidservant laughing without any regard for her image. Miss. These two little things are quite interesting. But why didn't any insects land on me? Grape saw a firefly on Lotus Seed's shoulder, and his heart suddenly felt unbalanced. AI. His character. Lotus Seed said deliberately, obviously trying to anger Grape, as if to verify her words. At this time, a firefly also fell from Ning Hai's shoulder. Seeing this situation, Grape became even more depressed. Her mind began to run wild. Could it be that she was really a bad person? Ha ha ha. Len Ruoxue and the others laughed happily when they saw Grape's troubled and depressed look. Miss. You guys ganged up to bully me. Grape's eyes were filled with tears as he said in an extremely aggrieved manner. Someone even colluded to hide it from me before. Len Ruoxue kindly reminded Grape when she heard her words. Miss. Grape looked at Len Ruoxue pitifully and called out pitifully. It's useless to act pitiful. Len Ruoxue said without giving him any face. After she finished speaking, she even deliberately teased the two fireflies on her shoulders. AI. Seeing Len Ruoxue's expression, Grape was completely depressed. Boo-hoo. The young miss was taking revenge. And obviously, the others had all wisely chosen to stand on the young miss' side. Why was she so pitiful? It was fine if those little bugs didn't like her, but they were also bullied. Miss. Let's go over there and take a look. There are so many people there, I wonder what they are doing. At this time, Lotus Seed saw a lot of people gathered not far from them from the corner of his eye. He couldn't help but feel curious. You can let Big Brother Ning accompany you. I'm tired, I'll rest here and wait for you. Len Ruoxue said after some thought. She had never liked crowded places. In addition, Firefly City was a little noisy at night, so she had enough of walking around after a while. Miss. If you're tired, let's go back to the inn. Upon hearing Len Ruoxue's words, Lotus Seed hurriedly replied. It doesn't matter. You guys don't need to worry about me, go and play on your own. Len Ruoxue laughed. How can this be? Lotus Seed didn't agree. What's wrong? You won't listen to me? Len Ruoxue deliberately put on a straight face and said in a slightly displeased tone. Miss. Well, go play by ourselves, but you just wait for us here and don't run around. Grape reminded him with a serious face. I won't run around, I'll just sit here and wait for you, okay? Len Ruoxue could not help but laugh. These two maidservants were treating her like a child. Could she have lost it? Ruoxue. Then I'll stay here to accompany you. Ning Hai said worriedly. Ruoxue's strength was too low. He was not at ease to let her stay here alone, even though he did not think that there would be any danger in Firefly City. Big Brother Ning. Don't worry about me. I'll have to trouble you to look after the grapes and lotus seeds for me. Len Ruoxue chuckled. She had many ways to save her life, but she was worried about the grapes and the lotus seed. All right then. Ruoxue. Wait for us here. Ning Hai warned, as if he was afraid that he would not be able to see Len Ruoxue when he returned. Len Ruoxue nodded towards the housekeeper and the housekeeper. Then, she found an inconspicuous corner and sat down. After watching Ning Hai and the other two leave, Len Ruoxue was certain that they would not return so early, so she walked around the area casually. Then, she returned to the place where they had agreed to meet and waited for them. Not long after, Ning Hai came back with grapes and lotus seeds. Along with him was a strange man and woman. They looked to be in their early 20s and were very beautiful. The man was a god-tier master, while the woman was only a god-tier. From their expressions, they seemed to be arguing about something. Young master. Let's go back to the inn. When he reached Len Ruoxue's side, Grape pulled on her arm unhappily and left. Wait. Suddenly, they heard a loud shout. Len Ruoxue was confused, while Ning Hai and the other two were impatient. You're their master. At this moment, the woman walked in front of Len Ruoxue and questioned her loudly. However, when she saw Len Ruoxue's incomparably handsome face, she immediately turned into a love-struck girl. Her beautiful face was dyed with a touch of red, and her beautiful eyes flickered with countless carefulness. Len Ruoxue, who did not know what was going on, nodded her head. Countless question marks appeared in her mind. I'll buy these two maidservants, state your price. The woman said shyly. However, it was hard to change her nature. Miss, did you make a mistake? I didn't say I was going to sell my own maidservant. Len Ruoxue was a little speechless. Seeing that both of them were dressed very luxuriously, their background should not be ordinary. However, even if they were born into a noble family, they couldn't possibly force them to buy, right? Big brother. Just sell them to me. It's rare for my fiancé to take a fancy to these two girls and follow my fiancé. That's their good fortune that they've cultivated for several generations. The woman said pitifully as tears appeared in her eyes. Chapter 1491, Top Grade, 1, Miling. Don't spout nonsense. As soon as the woman spoke, the man beside her immediately rebuked. Cousin. These are my heartfelt words. I've said it before, if you really like these two girls, I don't mind you taking them. The woman named Miling said with a magnanimous look. Do you know what you're saying? When did I say I'd take them in? The man sighed and said helplessly. Don't you like them very much? As long as cousin likes it, I will help you get it. Who asked me to be your fiancé? Miling said seriously. Miling. You. The man was so angry that he couldn't speak. Listening to their conversation, Len Ruoxue could not help but feel a few black lines sliding down her forehead. She thought to herself, these two people are really of the highest quality. They don't even ask for other people's opinions and are so self-righteous. She didn't say that she was going to sell the grapes and lotus seeds, so how could this woman take the liberty to give her maidservant to someone else? He should at least ask for her opinion, right? Even though Len Ruoxue was a little unhappy to hear their conversation, she was still a little confused and did not intend to speak immediately. Instead, it was Grape who could not hold it in any longer and shouted, I'm saying this for the last time. Listen up, we're not selling. She would definitely not be someone else's concubine. You guys can give up on that idea. It's not up to you to decide if you want to sell it or not. If this big brother is willing to sell you to me, you will naturally have to listen to my arrangements, and you will not be able to object. Miling said with a faint smile, her face full of pride. Stop dreaming. My young master will never sell us off. Grape said confidently, her beautiful face full of disdain. Oh, really? I don't think so. Miling didn't mind. In her opinion, as long as she had enough money, there was nothing she couldn't buy. Then, she looked at Len Ruoxue shyly and said coyly, Good brother. Sell me your two maidservants. I really like them. As soon as Miling finished speaking, Len Ruoxue, Grape, and Lotus Seed had goosebumps all over their bodies. They were so frightened that their hair stood on end. Oh my God. This woman changed her attitude faster than turning a page in a book. She was so arrogant in front of her and Lotus Seed, but in front of her miss, she became a weak and helpless woman. However, she was really curious. If Miss Miling knew that her miss was also a woman like her, would she still pretend to be a little bird? Grape couldn't help but think to herself. At this moment, she was filled with curiosity, and her disgust for this woman could only be ranked at the back. I'm sorry. I'm not selling my maidservant. Let's go. After Len Ruoxue finished speaking to Mei Ling, she turned to Ning Hai and the others. In fact, she didn't want to be too entangled with two passers-by. So, although their words were unpleasant, she didn't want to argue with them. Otherwise, wouldn't it be endless? The three of them nodded and left without looking back. After returning to the inn, Len Ruoxue helplessly realized that the couple had actually returned with them. However, the inn was considered a public place and they could not chase them out. Hence, they could only return to their own room. After entering the room, Len Ruoxue began to ask about the entire incident. Shouldn't you two tell me what happened just now? Len Ruoxue raised her brows and asked indifferently. Miss. You don't know how unlucky we are. Upon hearing Len Ruoxue's question, Grape immediately poured out her grievances. Her beautiful face was still full of grievances. Len Ruoxue nodded but did not reply. Instead, she used her eyes to signal for Grape to continue. Didn't we go to watch the show? In fact, the commotion was caused by them. For some reason, the two of them actually quarreled on the street and attracted a lot of people to watch. After we went over, the man inadvertently glanced at us. That girl called Miling said that the man had taken a fancy to us and even said that he wanted us to be his concubines. Miss. This is definitely an unexpected disaster. I won't be curious anymore, woo, Grape said with lingering fear. This time, she was really scared. Miss. I regret it too. Lotus Seed chimed in. She looked at Leng Ruoxue with a hidden bitterness in her eyes. Her eyes were red and full of hope. Please comfort me. Continue. Leng Ruoxue held back her laughter. After hearing what Myling said, we immediately rejected her. However, she didn't give up and actually followed us all the way back. Miss, you know what happened after that. Grape explained the reason in a few words, sighing as he spoke. Miss. In my opinion, that Myling girl is just a love-struck fool. I hope she doesn't fall for you, otherwise, with her logic, she might just make you her boy toy. Grape could not help but remind him. I'm not interested in women. If she really has such an idea, I can only tell her that I like men. Leng Ruoxue replied nonchalantly. If that woman was just saying it verbally, she could still forgive her. However, if she were to put it into action and do something that she shouldn't do, then she couldn't be blamed. Miss. Then should we tell her that we like women? Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Grape had an idea. If you still want to have an unclear relationship with them, then go and tell her. In fact, the best way to deal with such a sticky person was to ignore her. Otherwise, it won't be over if she pesters you. Leng Ruoxue smiled as she reminded. Then forget it. We'll be leaving tomorrow morning anyway. Grape said, a little scared. Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded and laughed in her heart. It seemed like Grape and Lotus Seed were really frightened, haha. The next morning, Leng Ruoxue and the other two left the room to meet up with Ning Hai. However, they found the fiancé from yesterday in the group. Instantly, the three of them were in a bad mood. When Ning Hai saw them coming out, he quickly walked up and whispered, Rohan, I only found out yesterday that they're from the Qi family. They're also going to the Ning family, so, Ning Hai was a little embarrassed to say it. In fact, when they came to find him yesterday and asked to go with him and the others, he wanted to refuse, but because of the Qi family's face, he couldn't refuse. After all, the relationship between the Ning family and the Qi family was still very good. Moreover, they were ordered to visit the Ning family. As a member of the Ning family, he couldn't reject the guests. If the direct line of the Ning family knew about this, he would also be punished. However, as long as he thought of what they had done yesterday, it was impossible for him not to feel conflicted. Therefore, he was also very conflicted, but he had to give face to the Qi family. Chapter 1492, Top Grade, 2, I understand. Big Brother Ning doesn't need to mind. Leng Ruoxue smiled and consoled him. It's good that you understand. Ning Hai said with a bitter face. Big Brother Ning. Let's go. Leng Ruoxue held back her laughter. Let's go. Under Ning Hai's command, everyone walked towards the city gate together. However, the one called Myling ran to Leng Ruoxue's side as if she was familiar with her and kept chattering. After a long time. Miss Myling. Aren't you tired after talking for so long? Leng Ruoxue rolled her eyes and said in a speechless manner. I'm not tired. Brother Leng, you don't have to worry about me. Myling's face was filled with shyness, and her cheeks were flushed. You're not tired. I'm tired of listening, can you be quiet for a while? Even though Leng Ruoxue was seeking Myling's opinion, her tone did not allow anyone to reject her. Brother Leng. How could you do this to me? I like you so much. As Myling spoke, her tears continued to fall. Seeing this situation, Ning Hai and the others knew to stay as far away as possible. Miss Myling. You have a fiancé, you should know what you should say and what you shouldn't say. Don't cause me any trouble. Leng Ruoxue warned with a cold smile. She had never seen a woman who dared to say that she liked another man in front of her fiancé. This woman was really a weirdo. Moreover, such ambiguous words would only bring trouble to herself. Therefore, she was getting more and more impatient with this woman. Brother Leng. I just like you, how can you treat me like this? Is it wrong to like someone? Hearing Leng Ruoxiu's words, Meiling felt even more aggrieved. There's nothing wrong with liking someone, it's your identity that's wrong. Miss Meiling. Please conduct yourself with dignity. Leng Ruoxiu reminded. After she finished speaking, she looked at the man not far away with a half-smile. This man named Qi Fei was really patient. Hearing that his fiancé liked another man, he didn't have any reaction at all. She really didn't know if he didn't care about his fiancé or if he had other plans. As she thought of this, she became more alert towards Qi Fei. After Leng Ruoxiu finished speaking, she walked to Ning Hai's side and walked alongside him. Hee. Brother Ruhan, you're really a source of trouble. Ning Hai laughed and joked. Big brother Ning. Most of the calamities are innocent. Leng Ruoxiu said helplessly. She now firmly believed that even if someone didn't want to cause trouble, trouble would come knocking on their door, and that was what she was like. Yes, I agree with this. Ning Hai agreed, but he still laughed happily. Big brother Ning. How far are we from the Ning family's divine realm? Leng Ruoxiu asked anxiously. Brother Ruhan, are you in a hurry to go to the Ning family, or are you trying to get rid of someone? Ning Hai was very curious and asked instead of answering. I want both. Leng Ruoxiu said. Hee. Well, reach the Ning family's divine domain after passing through the forest ahead. However, it'll take a few days to reach the main city. Ning Hai explained with a smile. Leng Ruoxiu nodded her head in understanding. She could already see the forest that Ning Hai had mentioned. It did not seem to be very big. Don't underestimate this forest. Although it's not very large, it's a very important barrier of our Ning clan's divine realm. Furthermore, this place is filled with fog. If there's no one to lead the way, it'll be very difficult to leave this place safely. As if he knew what Leng Ruoxiu was thinking, Ning Hai explained. After he finished, he handed Leng Ruoxiu a black pill and motioned for her to eat it. Then, he distributed the pills to the others. Young Master Qi. Do you need this pill? Ning Hai asked politely. Thank you, noble son Ning. We've already prepared the pills. Qi Fei said gratefully. Then, he took out 2 black pills. He gave one to Meiling and ate the other. This medicine is for the marsh gas poison. Leng Ruoxiu understood. Don't be afraid. It's not very bright inside, but it's not too dangerous. Ning Hai promised. After all, this forest was the only way to the Ning family's divine realm, so he was very familiar with it. I'm not afraid. Leng Ruoxiu smiled faintly and thought to herself, I'm not a 3-year-old child. How can I be so easily scared? Then, the group walked straight into the forest. The forest they had entered was called the Tiger Roar Forest. Although it was only 1,000 miles in radius, it was full of huge trees and luxuriant leaves. The plants grew well here, but the air inside was not flattering. It was still day, but it was almost like night. It was dark as far as the eye could see. If Ning Hai had not prepared a torch, it would have been difficult to move even an inch. Ruhan, young Master Qi. All of you be careful. It's not easy to walk here. Ning Hai reminded. Leng Ruoxiu nodded and gestured for Grape and Lotus Seed to come to her side. Brother Leng. I'm also scared. Seeing this, Meiling couldn't help but say with jealousy, damn it. On what basis could those 2 lowly servant girls enjoy such treatment? Young Master Qi is here to protect you. What are you afraid of? Leng Ruoxiu said with a smile. He is him. Big Brother Leng is Big Brother Leng, I want Big Brother Leng to protect me. Meiling said willfully. I'm sorry. Miss Meiling. I don't have that duty. Leng Ruoxiu rejected without any hesitation. She had never hated a woman so much before. Although this woman called Mei Ling was not like other women who treated her as an imaginary enemy when they saw her, that was because Mei Ling treated her as a man. So, she couldn't stand it even more. This woman's fiancé was clearly next to her, but she still stuck to her without care. What did she think of her fiancé? If Qi Fei was a petty person, he would hate her. So, this woman was not only asking for trouble, but also brought trouble to her. How could she have a good impression of such a woman? Brother Leng. How could you say that? Isn't protecting a weak woman something that you men should do? Mei Ling said in disbelief, her eyes filled with tears again. There's such a thing. How come I didn't know about it? Leng Ruoxue played dumb. Young master. Only self-righteous men like to do this kind of thing. Your strength is not high, so this kind of thing will not be your turn. So, you just need to protect yourself and don't worry about the other women. Grape said with a smirk. Who said that? A man who knows how to show tenderness to women is a true man. After hearing Grape's words, Mei Ling retorted loudly. Oh. Then don't treat me like a man. Leng Ruoxue said disapprovingly. Brother Leng. How can we do that? Mei Ling's eyes were filled with tears, and she said with a disapproving look. Chapter 1493, Top Grade, 3, Miss Mei Ling. I only have the strength of a mid-level deity, I still need others to protect me. Where would he have the heart to show tenderness to women? However, if it's because of this, it doesn't matter if you think him not like a man. I don't care about what others think. Leng Ruoxue pointed out. The outsider she was referring to was naturally Mei Ling. Big brother Leng. Mei Ling was full of resentment, and at the same time, she was a little hesitant. Before this, she had been paying attention to the other party's extremely handsome face and had really ignored his strength. Wu, what should she do? Do you still want to continue sticking to brother Leng? However, his cultivation level was too low. However, there were only two reasons for him to be able to live in the divine world as a mid-level deity. One was that he was doted on by his family, and the other was that he was extremely talented. No matter which one of these two reasons was, it seemed to be quite attractive. The only thing she did not know was the strength of brother Leng's family. She had never heard of the Leng family having a place in the divine world. However, looking at brother Leng's temperament, he did not seem to be from an unknown family. When she thought of this, her mind was spinning, and she even thought that the other party might be hiding his identity, which made her excited. If that was the case, she had to make good use of the opportunity, Mei Ling thought to herself. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue was still unaware that she had been treated as a little fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered. However, even if she knew, she would not take it to heart because in her eyes, Mei Ling was just a passerby. Big brother Ning. Will we be able to walk out of this forest today? Leng Ruoxue ignored Mei Ling's bitter expression and turned to ask Ning Hai. It's going to be tough today. I should be able to leave by this time tomorrow. Ning Hai said with a smirk. He felt a little sympathy for Leng Ruoxue. When she was a woman, she was treated with hostility by women. Now that she was wearing men's clothes, she was entangled by women again. And she was a woman with a master. Sigh. This was chaos. Fortunately, Qi Fei didn't mind his fiancé's behavior. Otherwise, Ruoxue would have been implicated again. Then let's find a place to camp while we walk. Leng Ruoxue suggested. Don't worry. I've already chosen the place, it's also relatively safer there. Ning Hai promised. He had almost grown up in this forest, and his Ning family often arranged for the younger generation to come here for experience, so he was very familiar with this place. Or rather, it could be said that this was the back garden of the Ning family. Since big brother Ning is leading the way, I don't need to worry. Leng Ruoxue laughed lightly as she teased. That's a must. Let's hurry up. When we arrive at the campsite I've chosen, everyone can take a rest. Ning Hai said. Following that, the group continued to move forward. Myling also stopped because she was treated coldly by Len Ruoxue. However, her resentful gaze continued to follow Len Ruoxue. Not long after, Ning Hai pointed to a spacious and clean place and said to everyone, "This is the place. Everyone, let's set up the tent first." Everyone nodded. After setting up the tent, Len Ruoxue entered the tent to rest while the others went hunting. When Len Ruoxue walked out of the tent, Grape and Lotus Seed had already prepared some food. "Hee. Ruhan, you've come out," Ning Hai said with an ambiguous smile. He knew very well that Len Ruoxue had entered the tent to avoid harassment, and that woman was indeed quite annoying. Big brother Ning. Where are they? Len Ruoxue's beautiful eyes looked around, but she couldn't find any traces of Myling and Qi Fei. They went hunting with Hong Wan and the others. Ning Hai explained. Oh. Len Ruoxue nodded and found a place to sit down. Xiao Budian, who was in her arms, sniffed the food and was almost drooling. "Are you hungry?" Len Ruoxue gently stroked Xiao Budian's fur and picked up a piece of pastry to pass to him. "Big sister is the best," the little guy happily said. He was becoming more and more satisfied with this big sister in his heart, even though the man and beast did not get along very well at the beginning. "Sister. They're back." The little guy heard the sound of footsteps from far away and said. Len Ruoxue nodded. After a while, Hong Wan and the rest returned. However, there was no smile on their faces. What kind of situation was this? "Hong Wan, what did you guys get?" Len Ruoxue asked curiously. "Young master. Don't even mention it, we didn't get anything." Hong Wan looked at Myling and said angrily. "Why didn't you get any? Didn't you get 2 rabbits? Myling said, unconvinced. She knew that these people had pushed the responsibility of not hunting too many prey on her. "There are so many of us here, are 2 rabbits enough to fill the gaps between our teeth?" Hong Ling retorted sarcastically. "It's better to have something to eat than nothing. If you think it's too little, then give it all to me." "I don't mind it being too little," Myling said impolitely. "You wish. We caught these 2 rabbits. You don't have a share. If you want to eat them, you can catch them yourself," Hong Wan said with a look of disdain. Not putting in any effort when hunting, and even thinking of getting a share of the loot with just these 2 rabbits, what kind of person was this? I'll do it myself. Cousin. Let's go fight again. They were just 2 rabbits. What's the big deal? Myling turned to Qi Fei and said. Myling. Don't mess around and just stay here. Qi Fei's eyes were wide open. Cousin. Are you even a man? You're already being bullied, yet you're still swallowing your anger. Myling heard Qi Fei's words and roared in anger. Shut your mouth, you hear me? Qi Fei was a little angry. This cousin of his was really too insensible. She even caused trouble for him when she was outside. In fact, he knew very well that if it wasn't for the Qi family's face, these people wouldn't even pay attention to them. Unfortunately, this cousin and fiancé woman couldn't see this truth. He was even more unwilling to ruin the friendly relationship he had built with these people because of this woman that he hated. Cousin. You dare to be fierce to me? I'll definitely tell my aunt. Seeing that her own cousin wasn't helping her, Myling instantly felt very embarrassed. She couldn't help but look at Len Ruoxue from the corner of her eyes, hoping to seek some comfort. Unfortunately, Len Ruoxue didn't even look at her, which made her even more vexed. As you wish. Qi Fei said disapprovingly, then turned around and returned to his tent. Myling saw that everyone was looking at her with gloating eyes, and her face instantly burned as if it was going to burn. I'm going hunting. Myling said angrily. Then, she turned around and ran away. Young master. Would it be okay for her to go hunting alone? Could something have happened? Grape looked at Myling's back and said worriedly. That woman was not easy to worry about. She was really afraid that Miss Myling would cause them some trouble. Chapter 1494, The Dark Tiger King, 1, Big Brother Ning. I'll have to trouble you to send some people to follow her. If something happens to her, the Chi family might have some ideas. Leng Ruoxue said after some thought. All right, he said. Ning Hai nodded, then ordered a few men with relatively good strength to follow and protect Myling in secret. Young master. You're so kind. I don't care if she's dead or alive. It's best to let her be taken away by the wolves, so as to avoid causing trouble for us. At this moment, Hong Wan angrily walked in front of Leng Ruoxue and complained. Ha ha ha. Hearing Hong Wan's words, everyone couldn't help but laugh. Hong Wan, the wolf won't be willing to take her away. Grape said with a serious face. Why? Hong Yuan was confused. Ask your brother Qing and you'll know. See if he's willing. Upon hearing Grape's words, Hong Wan's face turned red. She looked at the person she liked and was instantly embarrassed. Woo-woo. How could she have forgotten that brother Qing was a wolf? Could it be that she had been pretending to be a human for too long and had forgotten that she and brother Qing were beastie? I don't want to. Qing Yun hurriedly said, and his words caused the crowd to roar with laughter. Ning Hai patted Qing Yun's shoulder like a big brother and said, ha ha ha. Brother, of course you're not willing. You're not a wolf. Hee hee. That's right. Qing Yun pretended to be stupid, but he couldn't help but think in his heart. Who said he wasn't a wolf? But, wolves also had taste, okay? Dinner passed in a cheerful atmosphere. Leng Ruoxue and the rest had decided to rest, but Myling and the others had not returned yet. Seeing this situation, Leng Ruoxue could not help but regret asking Brother Ning to send people to protect her. Ruhan. You guys go rest first. I'll bring some people to look for them. Ning Hai saw Leng Ruoxue's worried expression and couldn't help but say. It was fine for men like them to sleep less, but Ruoxue and the rest were delicate girls. If they didn't rest well, it would be very hard to travel tomorrow. It doesn't matter. I'm not sleepy yet, Big Brother Ning. I'll go with you. Leng Ruoxue said. Actually, she wasn't worried about Myling's safety. She was more worried about the team members that Big Brother Ning had sent out to protect Myling. You stay here obediently. Big Brother Ning is very familiar with this forest. I'll be back soon. If I bring you along, I'll have to take care of you. Ning Hai deliberately put on a disdainful expression. He was just short of directly saying that Leng Ruoxue was a burden. All right. I'll be waiting here. Leng Ruoxue smiled helplessly. That's a good girl. After Ning Hai finished speaking, he was about to take the other brothers to find her, but he was stopped by someone. Wait. Young noble Ning. I'll go with you. It was Chi Fei who stopped them. He heard from outside the tent that Myling and the others hadn't returned yet, so he couldn't help but worry. Although he didn't like Myling, she was still his cousin. All right. Ning Hai nodded. Although he hated Myling, he had a good impression of Chi Fei. Looking at the back of Ning Hai and the others, Grape's disgust for Myling deepened. What a woman who doesn't know what's important. It's fine if she ran out alone, but it's so late and she doesn't know how to come back. Isn't she just causing trouble for others? Miss. You should go rest first. I'll look after this. Grape whispered to Leng Ruoxue. I'm fine. I'm not that weak. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. After she finished speaking, Leng Ruoxue sat down beside the fire. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be focused on the fire, but her thoughts had long drifted 1,000 miles away. After a long while, Leng Ruoxue and the others who were guarding the campsite heard a series of hurried footsteps. They looked up at the same time and saw Ning Hai and the others running towards the campsite with nervous faces. They looked extremely embarrassed. Big Brother Ning. What happened? Are you guys hurt? Leng Ruoxue saw that Ning Hai and the rest were all covered in blood and asked in confusion. Ruhan, there's no time to explain. Quickly pack up and leave this place immediately. Ning Hai urged. N. Leng Ruoxue nodded, then gave Grape and Lotus Seed a look. The two of them immediately understood and quickly packed their things. However, before the group could leave, they heard howls coming from the forest. They rose and fell one after another, and did not stop. Furthermore, from the sounds, there was more than one type of beast. Captain! They're coming, what do we do now? When someone heard the beast's roar, he immediately panicked and said in fear. Be a little more promising, okay? Not even women are as timid as you. Ning Hai growled in a low voice. In fact, what he wanted to say more was that women were not afraid. What are you afraid of? Big brother Ning. Let's go. Leng Ruoxue reminded. She could tell that Big Brother Ning and his group had most likely provoked the beasts in the forest. Now that they had angered them, they were gathering their companions to take revenge. One had to know that other than the beasts that lived in groups, any beast that could gather its companions could be called a king, and their strength could not be underestimated. Thus, leaving this place as soon as possible was the best plan. Yes. Ning Hai nodded and said, everyone, leave this place quickly. However, before they could leave, they heard a slightly gloomy voice in their ears. You want to leave? No way. Today, none of you will leave this place. As soon as he finished speaking, a huge black figure descended from the sky and stood in front of Leng Ruoxue and the others. Immediately after, countless beasts swarmed in from all directions. Their dark green eyes were like a tiger's eyes. Under the dim night sky, they were like searchlights that sent chills down one's spine. Young master. It's the Dark Tiger King. Grape looked at the huge creature in front of her and was so scared that she stuttered. In the divine world, the king of tigers was the White Tiger clan. They were also born to be kings and had a supreme position among the beasts since ancient times. As for this black tiger, it was a mutation of the white tiger and was quite rare in the divine world. They were called the Tiger King because of their absolute strength. Even when the White Tiger and the Dark Tiger King were of the same level, they were still considered as the king of tigers. The Dark Tiger King was still slightly better. However, the Dark Tiger King in front of them seemed to be even more powerful than Ning Hai. Wouldn't that mean that it was at least a 7th rank sacred beast? Although a class 7 sacred beast was equivalent to a divine lord, a human divine lord might not be a match for a class 7 sacred beast. In addition, the Tiger King had gathered so many underlings. Therefore, it would be a difficult thing for them to leave safely. Hearing Grape's words, Leng Ruoxue lifted her beautiful eyes to size up the black tiger who was looking at them arrogantly. Seeing the tiger's disdainful gaze, Leng Ruoxue did not know whether to laugh or cry. Who would have thought that one day, he would actually be looked down upon by a beastie? What the hell was this? However, this tiger was really beautiful. Its black fur was smooth and soft, and it felt very good to the touch. Coupled with its huge body, it looked even more majestic. With just one look, Leng Ruoxue, who loved beasts by nature, had a good impression of it, even though this big black tiger was currently glaring at them with an angry expression. Chapter 1495, The Dark Tiger King, 2, You're quite knowledgeable, but you'll still die. The Dark Tiger King said arrogantly. In the divine realm, it was not that there were no naturally black tigers, but those ordinary black tigers were different from it. It was a variant of the White Tiger clan, so how could ordinary black tigers compare to it? However, many people could not tell the difference between the Dark Tiger King and ordinary black tigers, and would often mix them up. Seeing that this little girl had recognized his identity, he would give them a quick death later. Even if you want to kill us, you should at least give us a reason. Otherwise, even if I die, I'll still come and bother you. Leng Ruoxue laughed lightly and said with a shameless look. You. Whether there's a reason or not, you're all dead. The Dark Tiger King was so angered by Leng Ruoxue that it could not say a word. White smoke kept coming out from its huge nostrils. It was obvious that it was quite angry. I'm not convinced. Since you're a king, you should at least convince us, right? Leng Ruoxue ignored the Dark Tiger King's anger as she spoke in a calm manner. Humph. If you want to be convinced, you'll have to ask yourself what good things you've done. When the Dark Tiger King said this, its pitch-black eyes were so furious that they were about to spew fire. What did we do? We've been obediently staying in our own camp all this time, but you, on the other hand, have surrounded us with your subordinates in such an aggressive manner. May I ask what you want? Leng Ruoxue pretended to be confused. Even though she didn't know how Big Brother Ning and the rest had angered them, she could only play dumb for now. Humans are indeed cunning. If you want to know what you've done, why don't you ask your companions? The Dark Tiger King suggested. It could not detect the aura from its cave on this human, so it immediately concluded that this human did not know why it had surrounded them. However, this did not mean that it would let this human off. All right. Big Brother Ning. Now, can you tell me what happened? Leng Ruoxue's beautiful face was filled with helplessness. This Tiger King was not easy to fool. Ruhan. We have indeed angered them, but this has nothing to do with you. I will explain to the Dark Tiger King and beg them to let you go. Ning Hai said apologetically. Big Brother Ning. What are you saying? Am I a person who is afraid of death? I just want to know what happened. You have to let me die knowing why. Leng Ruoxue said with slight displeasure. Ruhan. Don't be stubborn. Staying alive is more important than anything else. Ning Hai had a headache. This girl. This was not the time to throw a tantrum. Why couldn't she just listen to his arrangements? When he thought of this, he felt a headache. Big Brother Ning. I just want to know what happened and why you guys provoked the Dark Tiger King. Leng Ruoxue smiled as she reminded him. Who can tell me? Seeing that Ning Hai didn't say anything for a long time, Leng Ruoxue could only turn her attention to the others. She knew that Ning Hai didn't tell her because he didn't want her to get involved in this matter. However, she didn't think that the Dark Tiger King would be so easy to talk to that he would let her go just because she didn't participate. When Ning Hai's subordinates saw that their captain didn't say anything, no one dared to tell Leng Ruoxue what had happened. However, even if they didn't say anything, it didn't mean that others would. When Meiling saw Leng Ruoxue's gaze turn to her, the grievances in her heart exploded. With a wail, she burst into tears. Wu. Brother Leng. You have to save me. I don't want to die. Tell me, what's going on? Leng Ruoxue heard Meiling's cries and frowned, speaking impatiently. I was originally going to go hunting, but I accidentally entered this tiger's cave. We had a conflict with them, so they wanted to kill us. Wu. Big Brother Leng. You have to save me. Meiling burst into tears, hugging Leng Ruoxue's arm and wailing. Enough. Don't cry anymore. Leng Ruoxue saw Meiling's snot and tears all on her sleeve and growled in disgust. Brother Leng. You can't leave me behind. Meiling raised her head and said pitifully. Young Master Qi, look after your woman. Leng Ruoxue didn't even look at Mei Ling and just threw her to Qi Fei. Then, she turned her eyes to Ning Hai and the others again and said with slight displeasure, Brother Ning, are you still not willing to tell me what happened? Young Master Leng. It's all that damned woman's fault. At this time, someone in the line couldn't help but point at Meiling and say. Her. Leng Ruoxue looked at Meiling and continued, what did she do? She took a fancy to a tiger that had just given birth and wanted it to be her contracted beast. The tigress was unwilling, so she fought with us. If it wasn't for the captain and the others who arrived in time to save us, we would have become their dinner long ago. That person said angrily. What's wrong with me wanting to take in a contracted beast? It's her honor that I'm interested in that tigress, she really doesn't know what's good for her. Meiling shouted unhappily. You shut up. Leng Ruoxue and Qi Fei shouted at the same time, scaring Mei Ling so much that she shut her mouth immediately. However, her eyes continued to stare at Leng Ruoxue with an aggrieved look. Hee hee. What a big tone. Who do you think you are to let my woman be your contracted beast? You should give this honor to someone else. At this time, the Dark Tiger King heard Miling's words and laughed in anger. I'm a member of the Qi family, one of the 8 divine domains. Do you think my status isn't worthy of a tiger? Miling said, unconvinced. Damn it, it was fine if the Ning family didn't take her seriously, but even a tiger looked down on her. It was really preposterous. I don't care how many god domains you're from. You've injured my woman and snatched my child. None of you can think of living. The Dark Tiger King's face turned serious as it said coldly. He's the one who injured your woman. If you want to settle accounts, go find him. It has nothing to do with me. Miling pointed at Ning Hai. Everyone despised Miling for betraying others without hesitation in order to survive. Even Qi Fei felt that it was a very embarrassing thing to have such a cousin, so he subconsciously kept a distance from her. You ungrateful woman. Our captain saved you, yet you don't know how to be grateful. You even want him to be the scapegoat. Are you still human? How could the Qi family have a relative like you? You've disgraced all the 8 divine regions. Miling's words immediately made everyone unite against a common enemy, and the voices of criticism against Miling emerged one after another. I didn't ask him to save me. Besides, it was indeed him who injured that tigress. Now that her husband wants revenge, do you want to drag us into this? Miling retorted. Chapter 1496, The Dark Tiger King, 3, Big Brother Ning. You've seen the current situation. Could it be that you're willing to cause others to suffer for the sake of an ingrate? Miling's words made Leng Ruoxue reveal a sweet smile. She knew that the reason why Big Brother Ning was unwilling to tell the truth in front of this tiger was probably because he was afraid that this Tiger King would be even more embarrassed and angry after knowing the truth. In addition, he also wanted to protect Miling for the Qi family's sake. However, it was obvious that she didn't need it, so Big Brother Ning was probably expressing the wrong feelings again. Dark Tiger King. Your wife was indeed injured by me, and it has nothing to do with anyone else. Please let them go. I'm willing to do whatever you want with me. Ning Hai said to the Tiger King after hearing Leng Ruoxue's words. He knew very well that the Tiger King was still in a fit of anger. So, even if he said that he had nothing to do with this, the Tiger King would not believe him. Moreover, he was the one who had injured the female tiger. This was something he could not deny, even if there was a reason behind it. You're still a man, but even if you admit it, they'll still have to die. The Dark Tiger King said emotionlessly. Its pitch-black eyes swept coldly across the other people present. On what basis? We're not the ones who injured your woman. You can go look for whoever injured you. Miling couldn't help but roar after hearing the Dark Tiger King's words. Wasn't it you guys? Don't think that you can fool me just because I wasn't at home at the time. You also have my wife's scent on you. Also, my wife said that our child was taken away by a woman. That woman must be you. The Dark Tiger King's large black eyes narrowed as he continued speaking. You, don't talk nonsense. I didn't steal your child. Besides, I'm not the only woman here. How can you be so sure that I stole it? Miling argued. She must have snatched it. She was the only woman with us at that time. At this moment, someone said, What are you talking about? How can you accuse me? Miling was so frightened that she quickly shouted. Brothers! Am I talking nonsense? The man looked at Miling sarcastically and asked the others. No, I didn't, T. Indeed, there's only her. Someone echoed. Young master. This person is really bad, she actually wants us to take the blame for her. Grape also said with a look of disdain. Now, which one of you can tell me what happened from the beginning to the end in detail? Leng Ruoxue gave Grape a consoling look and told everyone. Actually, she wanted them to go into detail mainly for the Tiger King. Ill talk. someone said. It's like this, didn't Captain ask us to follow her quietly? At first, we followed her. Later, we followed her into a cave. There was a beautiful white tiger in the cave. This Miss Myling wanted it to be her contracted beast, but the other party refused, so Miss Myling wanted to use force. Who knew that she would anger the tigress? Miss Myling was no match for the tigress, and we couldn't just watch her get hurt, although she was quite annoying, so we fought with the tigress. Originally, we only wanted to bring Miss Myling out of the cave. We didn't want to hurt the female tiger, but Miss Myling refused to leave and insisted on getting some benefits. We couldn't stop her, so we could only think of a way to hold the female tiger back. Later, the female tiger suddenly went crazy and we were almost killed by it. At that time, the captain and the others arrived to save us. If it wasn't for Captain, I'm afraid we wouldn't be in this world anymore. Now that I think about it, Miss Myling must have taken the mother tiger's child away at that time, and that's why the mother tiger went crazy. The man recalled the scene and explained. Dark Tiger King, the matter is clear now. Everything started because of this woman. I'll hand her over to you now. You can do whatever you want with her. Leng Ruoxue said emotionlessly. Right now, she didn't care who Mei Ling's daughter-in-law was. If she wanted to appease the Tiger King's anger, she had to give him an explanation. Of course, she wouldn't hand over Big Brother Ning, so she had no choice but to hand over Mei Ling, the culprit. Do you think I'll let you go just because you gave me a useless woman? The Dark Tiger King laughed coldly, and the words whimsical were written in its large, black eyes. What else do you want? Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. You will all be buried with my wife. And my child, hand over my child and I can give you a quick death. The Dark Tiger King said coldly. Your wife is dead. Leng Ruoxue was a little surprised. Impossible, I didn't kill it. Hearing the Dark Tiger King's words, Ning Hai was also confused. It has lost too much blood and won't live for long. This is all your fault. The Dark Tiger King's anger soared to the heavens. It wanted nothing more than to swallow these abominable humans alive. Initially, it had spent a lot of effort to find medicinal herbs to recover its strength when its wife was having a difficult labor. However, it did not expect to see its wife lying in a pool of blood when it rushed home. She was on her last breath. In addition, its wife had told it that the child that they had painstakingly given birth to had been snatched away by a human woman. The anger in its heart deepened. Its child. It had never seen its child before. Was it going to face the fate of being bound to a human contract the moment it was born? No. As the noble king of the tiger tribe, he would never allow such a thing to happen. He would never allow his own child to become a slave to humans. Therefore, it had brought the subordinates it had gathered to chase after them. Dark Tiger King, calm down. I might have a way to save your wife. Leng Ruoxue consoled. Even though the Shadow Tiger King had always wanted to kill them, she understood the pain of losing its loved ones. Hence, she did not wish to form a grudge with the tiger. Do you really have a way to save my wife? The Dark Tiger King asked doubtfully after hearing Leng Ruoxue's words. I'll have to see how your wife is doing first. Leng Ruoxue didn't dare to be too confident. Good. If you can save my wife, I can spare their lives. The Dark Tiger King said after some thought. The them it was talking about did not include Ning Hai. If I can save your wife, you can't kill Brother Ning. Leng Ruoxue said bluntly. Why? He injured my wife and caused it to suffer so much, so I must kill him. I can't let my wife be bullied for no reason. The Dark Tiger King said stubbornly. Dark Tiger King. Even though Big Brother Ning injured your wife, he did it to save his own brother. So, from this point of view, he's not in the wrong, Leng Ruoxue said indifferently. However, before she could finish her sentence, she was interrupted by a furious voice. Is my wife in the wrong? If it wasn't for you humans, would my wife have gotten even more injured? The Dark Tiger King roared in anger, and the anger in its heart shot up to its head. Chapter 1497, The Dark Tiger King. 4. Your wife did nothing wrong. Leng Ruoxua let out a soft sigh. She could understand the tiger's anxiety, so she naturally wouldn't be bothered by its rudeness. Tiger King. Both noble son Ning and your wife did nothing wrong, so if you want to settle this matter, you should find the culprit. Grape could not help but interrupt. What you said makes sense. After hearing Grape's words, the Dark Tiger King's eyes widened and stared at Myling. Human. Hand over my child and I can let you die a quick death. I didn't take your child. Myling stammered. She knew that she couldn't take out the two little tigers, or she would die. Human. Since you're so insensible, don't blame me for being impolite. After the Dark Tiger King finished speaking, it raised its huge claws high up in the air, intending to land them on Mei Ling's body. However, when Mei Ling saw this scene, she was so scared that she had already collapsed onto the ground. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. If you kill me, you won't be able to find your child. Mei Ling said as she cried. Damned human. You dare to threaten me? The Dark Tiger King was enraged. Fuck. It had never been threatened by anyone in its long life. However, this detestable human woman made it feel as if it was unable to follow its heart. It was even more afraid of shooting at the rat for fear of breaking the vases. This was because its newborn child was in her hands. Therefore, when it heard her threat, the Dark Tiger King was at a loss for what to do. I am telling the truth. If you kill me, you can forget about seeing your children. I hid them in a place that no one knows. If I die, they will starve to death. Myling mustered her courage and threatened. Although she was very scared when she said this, she believed that the Tiger King would not abandon her child. All right. You win. If you return my child, I will not kill you. The Dark Tiger King sighed and said helplessly. Although he said that, his hatred for Myling grew even deeper. For the sake of its own child, it could spare her this time, but if she offended it again, then don't blame it. You mean what you say? Myling asked worriedly, her body still trembling slightly. I'm not a human. The Dark Tiger King said disdainfully. He was basically saying that only humans would make irresponsible remarks. All right then. I'll believe you this once. Mei Ling said fearfully. She then walked behind a huge tree and took out a small black tiger from her storage ring. It was just like the Dark Tiger King. As the little tiger was just born, it had yet to open its eyes. Its tiny body was not even the size of an adult's fist. It was a fluffy ball and looked very cute. Myling walked to the Dark Tiger King and placed the little black tiger on the ground. Then, she ran back to Leng Ruoxua and the others. My child. My child. The Dark Tiger King was extremely excited as it used its paws to gently pick up its little baby. This was the first time it had seen its own child. However, when it picked up its baby, it realized that something was wrong. Its baby's breathing was very weak and intermittent. Seeing this, it was angry again. Human. What a good thing you've done. The Dark Tiger King let out a loud roar as its pitch-black eyes looked as if they were about to spew fire. Its newborn child was supposed to be breastfed, but it was stolen by this damned woman and had no idea where she had placed it. As a result, its breathing was weak. This was clearly a sign of its body being unhealthy. Otherwise, its child would have been able to open its eyes by now. Didn't I return your child to you? Mei Ling played dumb. In fact, she had taken away two little tigers, one black and one white. The female tiger was injured, so she was careful and returned the black one to the Dark Tiger King. She was betting that the big black tiger didn't know how many children it had. In this way, she could have a beautiful white tiger. How proud would that be? However, her originally happy thoughts turned into guilt because of the Dark Tiger King's anger. You still have the nerve to say that? I had two children, but you only returned one to me. Furthermore, you caused my child to become like this. Humph. Quickly hand over my other child, or else you'll have to bear the consequences. The Dark Tiger King squinted its eyes and said in an extremely displeased manner. There were two of them, but now there's only one left. That one is dead. Mai Ling's mind turned quickly, and she plucked up her courage to lie. Anyway, this tiger had said that as long as she returned the children to it, it would not kill her. It did not say that she had to return 2 children to it. So, Mai Ling thought that her life was saved, and so she lied without any fear. Do you think I'm that easy to fool? I think you really won't shed tears until you see the coffin. The Dark Tiger King scoffed. Humans are truly cunning. They actually thought that they had found a loophole. Humph. It wasn't that easy to fool. Believe it or not, I've already returned the child to you. You can't kill me. Mai Ling reminded. You did return my child to me, but I was the only one you returned. Furthermore, you caused my child to become like this. Do you think I will let you off? The Dark Tiger King laughed. This human was too full of himself. He had said that he wouldn't kill her if his child was safe and sound. However, this wasn't the case. One of his children's whereabouts was unknown, and the one in his palm was on the verge of death. How could he let her go? If you've returned it, then you've returned it. As the Tiger King, you can't go back on your word. Mai Ling kept biting on the Dark Tiger King's words. This was her life-saving charm. Human. Do you think he'll let you go just because you played mind games with me? The Dark Tiger King laughed in spite of itself. Its own child was already on the verge of death. If it stubbornly kept its promise, it would look down on itself. Moreover, even though it had promised that it would not kill this human woman as long as she returned its child, how did this human do it? Feeling the killing intent in the Dark Tiger King's voice, Mai Ling's heart trembled. She gathered her courage and asked, I've already returned the child to you. What else do you want? I'm going to kill you. The Dark Tiger King roared. After it finished speaking, it stretched out its huge palm and grabbed Mai Ling in front of it as if it was holding a little chick. Arg! Let me go. Quickly let me go. Mai Ling, who was suspended in midair, was flailing her limbs around. Her heart began to tremble. This time, she was really prepared to die. Let you go. Didn't you say that my other child is dead? Then you can go and be buried with it. The Dark Tiger King said without any emotion. He didn't die. It didn't die. If you let me go, I'll return it to you. Mai Ling cried. Chapter 1498, Temporary Partner, 1, Do you think I'll believe you again? The Dark Tiger King squinted his eyes and asked with a faint smile. I'm telling the truth. Trust me one more time. If I dare to lie to you, it won't be too late for you to kill me. Mai Ling cried. That's good. I'm giving you one last chance. The Dark Tiger King glared at Mai Ling and threw her to the ground. It then released a trace of its aura so that she would not dare to play any tricks. Mei Ling, who had been thrown to the ground, trembled as she took out the other dying white tiger from her beast storage ring. She placed it in front of the Dark Tiger King and looked at the Tiger King without daring to move. She was extremely afraid. Although she wanted to ask for help, she was so scared that she couldn't say anything. Seeing the little white tiger whose breathing was even weaker than the little black tiger's, the rage in the darkness Tiger King's heart rose. At this moment, it even had the thought of dismembering this woman into 1,000 pieces. Its good child had actually been harmed by this detestable human woman into such a weak state. This human truly deserved death. At the thought of this, it increased its pressure. Mai Ling, who was under great pressure and fear both mentally and physically, actually peed her pants unconsciously. Seeing this, everyone looked at Mei Ling with even more disdain. Even Chi Fei felt embarrassed, but no one wanted to plead for her. If it wasn't for her, how would they have provoked the Dark Tiger King? Right now, their lives were in the Dark Tiger King's hands. If the Tiger King was unhappy, none of them would be able to leave this place alive. So, at this time, they didn't have the mood to care about Myling's life. However, Myling, who was curled up and trembling on the ground, didn't realize her ugly state at all. At this moment, her heart was filled with fear. Sister! The two little tigers are going to die. Suddenly, Qingju's voice rang out in Leng Ruoxu's heart. Why would I? Leng Ruoxue replied in disbelief. From what she knew, weren't beastie all very strong? Even if it was a baby beast without parents, it would not die easily unless it met its natural enemy. Sister! This is the divine realm. If a cub is born here, it will be very difficult for it to grow up safely without the protection of its parents. Firstly, there are many natural enemies here, and secondly, the spiritual qi here is too brutal, so the cub can't absorb it normally. Thus, after they are born, they need their mother to feed them personally. However, these two little fellows were stolen from their birth and their mother had a difficult labor when giving birth to them. Thus, I guess that these two little fellows have yet to drink their mother's milk. It's also because of this that their bodies are slightly weaker than ordinary baby beasts. Qingju explained. Not only that, during this period of time, they have been locked up in the beast storage ring by that hateful woman. That place has a suppressing effect on the beasts themselves, so it has also caused their bodies to become even weaker. Therefore, they won't be able to live for long. However, Big Sister should be able to save them. Qingju added. They're too small, they can't eat pills. Leng Ruoxue shook her head in denial. After hearing Qingju's words, she did have the intention to help the two little fellows. However, their bodies were too weak and could not withstand the medicinal effects of the pills. Even if she wanted to save them, she had no way of doing so. At the thought of this, she looked at the two little furballs lying on the palm of the Shadow Tiger King. Leng Ruoxue's heart felt terrible. She liked Beastie. These two cute little fellows had not even seen their parents once and they were going to leave them forever. Even a person with a heart of stone would not feel comfortable seeing this. Sister! If you can cure their mother and let their mother feed them milk, they will be able to survive for the time being. When they are a little older, you can give them pills and their lives will be saved. Qingju thought for a while and reminded. Yeah. Why didn't I think of that? Leng Ruoxue was overjoyed. If she could cure the female tiger, her mother's milk would naturally contain some medicinal properties. With that, these two little fellows could be considered half alive. Hee hee. Big Sister's concern has made her confused. Qingju said with an embarrassed smile. These two kids are really worrying. Leng Ruoxue nodded. She then turned to the Dark Tiger King and said, Tiger King. I have a way to save your wife and child, but I need your cooperation. You really can. The Dark Tiger King, who was crying in its heart, hurriedly raised its head when it heard Leng Ruoxue's words. Its pitch-black eyes stared unblinkingly at Leng Ruoxue. Previously, it had only half believed Leng Ruoxue's words, but now, with the condition of its wife and child, it had no choice but to place its hopes on her. Leng Ruoxue felt immense pressure when she saw the anticipation on the Tiger King's face. I've said it before, I can give it a try. Leng Ruoxue reminded. She had said before that they needed to check on the condition of the female tiger before deciding if they could save her. However, the Shadow Tiger King's attention was all on Myling and the two children, so they had yet to communicate properly. If you can cure my wife and child, I can let these humans go. The Dark Tiger King thought for a while before slowly speaking. It knew that this was definitely a condition that this human was going to put forward. However, if he could really cure his wife and children, it was not impossible for him to let these humans go. The humans that it mentioned included Ning Hai and the woman who had stolen its children. Good. I'll do my best. Leng Ruoxue said with a faint smile. She didn't expect the Dark Tiger King to reveal her thoughts. However, this was good as well, because this was indeed her goal. Also, this time, the Tiger King no longer stubbornly wanted to kill Big Brother Ning. As for Myling's life or death, she didn't care at all. Following that, the Dark Tiger King brought Leng Ruoxue and the rest to its cave. The reason why it brought them along was because it was afraid that they would run away. After all, it was still hard to say if the other party could cure its wife and children. If anything were to happen to his wife and children, then all these humans would not need to live anymore, especially that damned human woman. Thinking of this, it turned its head to look at Myling, who was being dragged on the ground by its underlings, and its killing intent rose. When they arrived at the cave where the Dark Tiger King was, the Dark Tiger King left the others outside the cave and only allowed Leng Ruoxue to enter. Seeing this, Grape and the others were a little worried. Tiger King. The young master's maidservant, let me in to help. Grape-faced man said with a smile. All right then. You're the only one allowed to go in. The Dark Tiger King said after some thought. Leng Ruoxue and Grape followed the Dark Tiger King into the cave, observing the surroundings as they walked. The cave was huge, and it was clean and refreshing. After walking for more than 10 minutes, they arrived at the Dark Tiger King couple's bedroom. Although it was called a bedroom, it was actually a relatively cleaner cave. There was a huge stone bed, and on the stone bed was a huge white tiger. It was weakly groaning. Chapter 1499, Temporary Partner, 2. Hearing the footsteps, the white tiger forced open its big blue eyes. When it saw its husband, its heart seemed to calm down. It looked at its sweetheart gently and closed its eyes again tiredly. Yen, I'm back. The Dark Tiger King strode over to his wife's side and called out gently. We've found our child. You can rest assured. Seeing the white female tiger's eyelids move slightly, the Dark Tiger King continued. However, it did not dare to tell its beloved wife that its child was also on the verge of death. Miss, can that female tiger be saved? Listening to the Dark Tiger King's mumbling, Grape asked in a soft voice with some sympathy. It was all the trouble caused by that annoying woman, causing his family to be separated. I don't know, Leng Ruoxue let out a soft sigh. If it was possible, of course, she would want to treat the mother and her 2 children. However, the tigress' condition seemed rather serious, so she was not very confident now. You can come over now. At this moment, the Dark Tiger King, who had spent some time with his beloved wife, said to Leng Ruoxue. N. When Leng Ruoxue heard the Dark Tiger King's words, she immediately walked forward. However, just as she picked up one of the female white tiger's huge claws, the female white tiger suddenly opened her eyes and stared at her with a wary look. Don't be afraid. I just wanted to take a look at your injuries. Leng Ruoxue consoled him softly. Yen, don't move. No one will dare to hurt you with me around. The Dark Tiger King also said, afraid that his wife would move around and tear her wound. Yes. Hearing her husband's words, the female white tiger Yen, relaxed, but her blue eyes were still alert. Even though Leng Ruoxue felt a little helpless, she did not care. After checking the female white tiger's injuries seriously, she took out a healing pill and stuffed it into the female white tiger's mouth. The injuries on the female white tiger's body, one was due to excessive blood loss caused by difficult labor, and the other fatal injury was in the abdomen. If she did not guess wrong, that injury should have been caused by Brother Ning. Although there were some other injuries in other places, they were basically superficial wounds and not very serious. As for the wound on the abdomen, it healed quickly after taking the pill. However, the damage caused by a difficult birth could not be easily cured by 1 or 2 pills. After all, difficult birth consumed the essence of the mother's body. Therefore, in addition to the healing pill, the most important thing was to recuperate well. This was similar to the principle of human labor. Although the female white tiger's body was still very weak, it did not affect her from feeding her babies. However, when she saw her 2 babies who were as weak as kittens, tears immediately rolled down from her eyes. My child. My poor child. Yen, cried as her heart ached. She blamed herself for not taking good care of the children, causing them to be so weak. At this time, her heart was in pain as if it was being pricked by needles. Don't cry. You and the child will be fine. Leng Ruoxue quickly consoled Yen when she saw her crying. Please save my child. Yen raised her head and looked at Leng Ruoxue with her big, watery blue eyes. Her face was full of pleading. The pill that this human had given her was very effective, so she firmly believed that she could cure her baby. At this moment, it could be said that she had placed all her hopes on Leng Ruoxue. If you want me to save them, you have to cooperate with me. They are still too young, and their bodies can't withstand the effects of the pill. So, you have to take care of your own body first, and then feed them until they are white and fat. Only then will I have a way to recuperate their weak bodies. Leng Ruoxue smiled as she reminded him. I'll do whatever you say. When Yen heard Leng Ruoxue's words, she quickly replied. Then, she carefully placed the two little babies on her chest. When the two little furballs smelled the milk, they arched their little heads and instinctively sucked. This was the two little fellows' first time drinking mother's milk. Looking at the white tiger's gentle and motherly expression, and then at the dark tiger king's dumbfounded expression, Leng Ruoxue and Grape tactfully retreated out of the cave. However, even so, they had no way of leaving this place. This was because the underlings of the dark tiger king were keeping a close eye on them. Myling received special treatment from them. After a long while, the dark tiger king walked out of the cave with a face full of joy. He came to Leng Ruoxue's side and said, My wife and children are not in danger for the time being. Thank you for saving them. I will keep my promise and will not kill you. The dark tiger king's words made everyone's hearts finally relax. However, the tiger king's last letter made them depressed again. However, I plan to stay with you until my wife and children are fully recovered. The dark tiger king added with a smile. Seeing everyone's expressions change again and again, it was in a very good mood. Good. No problem, Leng Ruoxue laughed. Having such a powerful bodyguard by her side was more than she could ask for. However, the others did not think as open-minded as her. As long as everyone thought of the fact that they had a beastie by their side, and that this beastie was very strong, their hearts would be in a mess. When are you guys leaving this forest? The dark tiger king asked. Tomorrow morning, Leng Ruoxue replied. Then I'll go pack up and leave with you guys tomorrow morning. After the dark tiger king finished speaking, it turned around and returned to the cave in an extremely elegant manner. When the crowd saw the dark tiger king's expression, they knew that what was done could not be undone. It was impossible to change this fact, so they could only accept it reluctantly. However, they were still a little afraid. Ruhan, I'm afraid that we won't have a good life in the future if the dark tiger king and his family follow us. Ning Hai whispered to Leng Ruoxue, sigh. This matter was also related to him, and he had even implicated Ruoxue. This made him feel extremely apologetic. Big brother Ning, you're thinking too much. The Tiger King's family isn't as scary as you think. The Dark Tiger King wanted to kill us before because it wanted to avenge its wife and children. Now, they want to follow us because of their wife and children's health. Leng Ruoxue chuckled as she explained. Initially, she had thought that the Dark Tiger King would keep them here until his wife and children had fully recovered. Now that she could leave early according to her original plan, she was more than happy to do so. Ruhan. No matter what, I'm the one who has implicated you. Ning Hai's face was full of guilt. Big brother Ning. I don't like to hear that. How can I blame you for this? Don't take all the blame on yourself. If you didn't save others, you wouldn't have hurt that female tiger. Leng Ruoxue reminded him helplessly. Big brother Ning was good in every way, but his sense of responsibility was a little too heavy. He always blamed himself for the responsibility that he should not have taken on. It seemed that she had to give brother Ning more lessons when she was free and correct brother Ning's thinking. Chapter 1500, Temporary Partner, 3, AI. After hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Ning Hai didn't know what to say. He understood what Ruoxue meant, but he couldn't come to his senses in a short time. Big brother Ning. Let everyone rest. We should be safe and sound tonight. Leng Ruoxue suggested as she looked at everyone's exhausted figures. Yes. Ning Hai nodded. With these beasts, they didn't even need to arrange for a night watch. Seeing that everyone had entered her tent, Leng Ruoxue was about to return to her tent to rest. However, before she could leave, she was stopped by Qi Fei. Master Leng, can you plead with the Tiger King to let my cousin go? Qi Fei said with some difficulty, but he still had to say these words. Otherwise, when he returned to the Qi family, his mother would blame him for not helping. Young Master Qi, I'm too embarrassed to plead with the Tiger King for your cousin after what she has done. However, if you want to go, I won't stop you. In fact, I suggest you don't go. It's a thankless effort. It's good to let your cousin suffer a little. Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. Without waiting for Qi Fei's response, she entered her tent. After entering the tent, Grape asked with a puzzled look, Miss. Didn't the Dark Tiger King say that he wouldn't kill them? Then why is Qi Fei still begging for mercy? Silly girl, he only said that. Well, just listen to him and forget about it. Do you really think he'll go and find the Dark Tiger King? Although the Tiger King promised not to kill us, he didn't say that he wouldn't torture Meiling. So, Meiling's physical pain is inevitable. No matter who goes to beg for mercy, the Tiger King won't give face. Otherwise, where would the dignity of the Tiger King be? Leng Ruoxue chuckled as she analyzed. AI. It seems that Qi Fei was just acting, I really thought he was that affectionate. Grape said with a look of disdain. This is human nature. You've been in the Yin family for so many years. You can't still be so innocent, right? Leng Ruoxue asked in amusement. Of course not, I just didn't realize this at the moment. Grape said, a little embarrassed. Rest early. With the Dark Tiger King's family coming with us, there's going to be a lot of fun to see in the future. Leng Ruoxue said. Hee hee. Miss. I'm really looking forward to it. Grape and Lotus Seed said with some excitement. The next morning. Leng Ruoxue and the other two had just walked out of the tent when they saw the Dark Tiger King couple already ready to attack. Their baby was currently lying on his parents' wide back, sleeping soundly. Can we set off now? When the Dark Tiger King saw Leng Ruoxue come out, it nodded its head in a friendly manner. Among all these people, the person it had the best impression of was this human. Yes. Leng Ruoxue looked at the conflicted crowd and nodded. Other than the Dark Tiger King's family of 4, the Tiger King's underlings had also followed Leng Ruoxue and the others. Leng Ruoxue turned around to look at the huge formation behind her, and a helpless smile appeared on her beautiful face. Wasn't the Tiger King's display of power a little too much? In the Dark Tiger King's words, his wife and children were too weak. If he brought these underlings with him, they would be able to take care of him on the way. As for Mei Ling, the Tiger King didn't kill her. However, she lost her freedom because she was always guarded by the Tiger King's most trusted underlings. She was also tied up by a rope and dragged on the ground by the Tiger King's underlings. The other people in the group all began to feel uneasy with the beastie as their companions. Who asked the beastie to look at them with a hint of hostility? Furthermore, the average strength of these beastie beasts was at least class 5 sacred god beasts, which put an enormous amount of pressure on them. Although the Tiger King had said that he would not kill them, if the Tiger King changed his mind, they would lose their lives. Before they left the forest, Leng Ruoxue took a look at Beastie who was following behind her and suggested to the Dark Tiger King, Tiger King, it's a little inconvenient for them to travel like this. Why don't you let them transform into human form? The Dark Tiger King thought for a moment before finally nodding. All right. You all should do as young Master Leng says. It still gave Leng Ruoxue a lot of face. Yes. Even though the Dark Tiger King's underlings were not too willing, they could not disobey their king's orders. In the blink of an eye, tall and burly men appeared in front of Leng Ruoxue and the others. Tiger King. How about you guys? Leng Ruoxue asked as she looked at the Tiger King's family, who had yet to transform into their human forms. Little Yan's body is too weak. It's not suitable for her to transform into a human form. I have to accompany her. The meaning of its words was very clear. It wanted to maintain its beast form. All right then. Leng Ruoxue was helpless. Bringing 2 tigers with her would not attract more attention than bringing a group of beasts, right? After that, everyone left the roaring tiger forest together. After leaving the forest, they would be in the Ning family's divine territory. However, it would take a few days to reach the Ning family's main city. However, Ning Hai could relax now that they were in the Ning family's divine territory. Ruhan, the city in front, is the territory of the Ning clan's divine realm. After flying for a while, Ning Hai pointed at the city on the ground and said, "They're here already?" Leng Ruoxue was a little surprised. At the same time, Hui Ao had also landed. "Yes, let's enter the city," Ning Hai said with a faint smile. He had been out for so many years, and now that he had returned to the Ning family's divine realm, he was extremely excited. He wondered how his parents and brother were. All right. Seeing Ning Hai's anxious look, Leng Ruoxue quickly nodded. This should be called rushing home. He brought Leng Ruoxue, the others, and the Tiger King's family of 4 to the city gates. Ning Hai showed the Ning family's identity token and entered the city smoothly. This city was called Ning Yuan City. It was a relatively remote city in the Ning clan's divine realm. At the same time, it was also the only path into the Ning clan's divine realm. This was because the Ning clan's divine realm was surrounded by mountains on both sides and the sea on one side. Moreover, the terrain was very steep. Only Ning Yuan City could lead to other places in the divine world. At the same time, one could only reach the main city of the Ning clan's divine realm by passing through Ning Yuan City. After Ning Hai brought Leng Ruoxue and the rest into the city, the first thing they did was to go to an inn to rest and recuperate. They would continue to set off the next morning. The inn that he was looking for was naturally the one that belonged to the Ning family. Although this was the Ning family's territory, the Ning family did not monopolize all of the Ning family's businesses in the divine realm. This was because they also welcomed people from other families to open their shops and make money. However, the shops that were the most stingy here were definitely monopolized by the Ning family. In the room of the inn, Grape stared at Leng Ruoxue with a face full of question marks and did not speak for a long time. "Grape. What's wrong with you now?" Leng Ruoxue felt Grape's gaze and asked in confusion. "Miss. What are we doing in the Ning clan's divine realm?" Grape was a little puzzled.